Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of The Drop Frames. The usual cast is here, and our favorite, well, we can't be biased. He's actually our favorite. The Rami is back from, where are you at now? You're in San Francisco now?
I'm in San Francisco.
Okay. What are you doing in San Francisco?
I'm on a layover to Australia.
So okay. You joined the show in between layovers.
Yes, that's kind of what happened. I had a day and a half or so here, so I thought, well, you know what? This sounds like it's going to be a fun episode, so I'll come join.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Before we go any further, Co, what episode are we on?
6378.
Thank you very much. 6378. We're on our way to 7,000. It's higher than last week, Zeke. Don't even ask.
Every day is one.
I don't think it is, though.
It is.
Is it? Okay.
It has to be. If it's not, then we're in some weird time paradox, and that's not good. We can't have that.
I mean, I'm flying to Australia, so I'm literally doing the Dateline thing. So,
well, Rami's always in a time paradox because he's always on a plane going somewhere. Time is just a weird thing that he has to somehow figure out every single hour of his life. But for the rest of us normies, you know, it just moves forward. It just moves forward for us constantly.
Wow.
Exactly. So the reason that we wanted to get Rami on after last week was we had a discussion about Assassin's Creed and the MTX in that game. And then this past couple of days, Rockstar decided just to go fucking crazy and talk about how it's cool to have people work 100 hours. And I was like, oh, cool. We've got our 100 hours a week. And I was like, cool, we got Rami coming on. So I'm just interested to hear all that and more. But before we jump to any of that, what have you been playing, Rami? Because I guess people know you as the indie guy, but your Twitter seems not so right now. You're playing a lot of AAA stuff.
Yeah, I try to kind of keep up to date on everything. I mean, I've been playing indies as well, but in AAA, there's just been a lot of good. Like, I played Spider-Man a little, but I bounced off of that a bit.
Yeah.
I like it. It's good. It's clearly good design. If somebody's looking for like a fun open world game with a Spider-Man in it, then go play Spider-Man.
Okay. Good pitch. Put that on the back of the box.
Yeah.
It's a pretty good game.
Odyssey.
Spider-Man in it.
Yeah. Assassin's Creed Odyssey has been really. I've been enjoying that a lot. I was kind of worried about like the BioWare like choose dialogue thing they were doing, but it kind of fits. It works.
Yeah.
And it's just I was a huge fan of Assassin's Creed back with Assassin's Creed 1 and 2. And then after that I kind of fell off and then didn't really like this much for a while. And then Origins kind of brought me back. Mm-hmm. And Odyssey is just, you know, more bigger Origins. So totally. I'm up for that. Played a little bit of the Blackout mode in Black Ops 4. Yeah, it's good. It's exactly what you think it is. So
Call of Duty with
Battle Royale.
Battle Royale tossed in, yeah.
And then obviously a lot of Destiny Forsaken that has been good. But then I've been playing a lot of indies as well, like Wonder Song, The Gardens Between, Lightfingers, Into the Breach. Sinner just came out. Is really interesting.
What is Sinner? What is that game about?
So think of it as like Dark Souls boss rush.
Okay.
Made by a bunch of indies. It's really good. It's just an incredibly good like fight timing. Like the best way is probably to just look up a trailer or something. Yeah. It's just a good game, and I've been enjoying it a lot. So there's a lot of stuff happening. There's a lot of games happening, and this is before all the end of year stuff is coming out. So I'm a little overwhelmed by how much stuff is happening right now.
Yeah. Well, you also announced a game as well. That's a thing that exists. You're working on something.
That was an accident.
Rami, you had a booth at PAX. That's not an accident. All right.
Okay. We were showing Nuclear Throne, and it was Vladir's 8th birthday, right? And you don't turn like 8 for a game studio. That's pretty old. So
yeah,
I thought, you know what? For just an hour, we're gonna switch Nuclear Throne out, and we're just gonna put up the game we're working on. and then nobody will notice, right? The press won't walk by because we're showing Nuclear Throne for the 5th year in a row. So nobody will notice. So I switched out the game for the fans so that we could get a little bit of feedback, a little quiet story. Then that moment, Tom Marks from IGN, who's a big Vlambeer fan, walked by, like literally the moment I switched over, and he just looked at it and he just went like, "That's new, isn't it?" So I had to. I honestly he asked like, "What's the name of the game?" and I had to be like, "I have no." That's Tom right there. Yeah, I have no idea. I don't know. I don't know what it's called. And he's like, "When is it out?" I'm like, "I don't know." And then he's like, "Platforms?" I'm like, I don't know. We have a game prototype, and that's it. It's a very fun game to play. It's very much a smaller thing. It's a high score game. It's basically inverse Space Invaders. So you start with one enemy, and every time you kill one, it splits into 2. And those get stronger over and over until eventually you just die. So it's very much a high score game. And it's super fun. I'm really happy with it. But yeah, as soon as they saw it, I just switched all computers over to the new game. So a lot of people have played it at PAX, but we're finishing it. We're finishing it soon, hopefully, and then everybody can play it.
Cool. I won't do what platforms, when is it coming out, all that stuff. So I don't think you have any of that to say.
Someday on some platform with some title.
Sure. Okay. Great. I guess how many times has this thing that we're seeing right here changed? Like since then, what have you changed since then? If you could talk about
a lot.
That, like,
yeah, a lot of pacing, but also just interface stuff. There's now unlocks, which is new. So you can unlock different ships with different powers. The little boss fights that you see that appear every now and then. They've improved a lot. A lot of graphical stuff, like the background, is a lot more interesting now. We have music. We have really good music. Really good sound effects now as well. But in general, like the way the game plays is very similar.
Cool.
It's one of those. We tried to make a game that will be fun to play as an in-between game, right? You play a game, and then when you get wrecked and you don't want to play another round of the game that just wrecked you, you just play our game, and then that wrecks you, and then you go back to the first game.
Yeah, makes sense, I guess.
I find myself playing a lot of games like that, a lot of hours in games that are the in-between games, because the games that you can keep going back to are the games like Slay the Spire or Enter the Gungeon or Nuclear Throne. The games that you're like, you go as far as you can, you get fucking pissed off because the fucking game sucks and it's cheating and shit like that, and you throw it down and you're like, all right, I'm gonna go back to Dragon Quest. And then Dragon Quest, like, all right, I'm gonna play one more game of this. And then I end up doing that like for several games down the line.
Yep.
I've been doing that offline with just Shapes and Beats recently.
Oh, really? I remember Zeke brought that up a couple weeks back.
I just tried it as a whim. I had like 15 minutes before I had to put my son to bed, and I was like, what do I want to play? Like, I have no time for anything. And I fired it up. That game is awesome.
What are you playing it on? PC?
Are
you
playing
playing
on PC?
Okay.
Straight up on my computer.
Yeah.
I turn my speakers up, and it's a lot of fun. It's really cool.
Yeah. I watched Dodger play it a bit recently as well. Is that game on any type of mobile platform? Is that like an iPad or anything like that? Because I don't know if I could sit at a PC and enjoy that, but if I'm on a plane somewhere.
On Switch, isn't it?
Oh, that would make sense. Yeah, if it's on Switch, it would make sense. Chat's saying it is on Switch. So
Get it on Steam or on Switch.
I might have to pick that up for the TwitchCon flight. That seems like it'd be a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
I fully recommend it. It's amazing, and also like make sure you get it cranked up, because it's there's a lot of very familiar songs, including, doesn't it have the Drop Frames opening song?
It has New Game in there.
Yeah,
I'm on that level right now.
Interesting. Huh. Okay. Now I will most likely definitely check that out for the flight next week. There's too many games though. Here's what's gonna happen. I'm gonna get my Switch. I'm gonna download that, Then I'm going to see like 5 other indie games on there that I want to play and download all those and then play none of them because I'll watch a movie. That's what's going to happen. I guarantee you.
There's no good movies on airplanes this month. I've tried.
Really? Really?
Yeah, there's nothing. There's just nothing. There's no good movies at the moment. I don't know. I watched Venom the other day. That was really fun. But
Yeah. We almost went and saw Venom, but then decided against it last minute.
Oh, what a mistake.
Yeah. We stayed home and watched Solo, though, which I was excited about. So.
Oh, Solo
Is it good?
Yeah, Solo is good. Solo is good if you don't go in expecting like the biggest Star Wars thing ever. You just go in and it's like a cute. It's a fine movie about Han Solo.
Yeah.
But Venom was really good because I think whoever was making the movie had like had like a change of personality halfway through. So there's like half of the movie is like really trying to be a horror movie, and then half of the movie is just like a cute, heartwarming, like coming to terms with your weird symbiote friend movie.
Nice. Okay.
And it was so good. I was just watching it and I was like, there's like an opening scene with like somebody walking with like a broken bone, and you're just like, oh, this is kind of gross for what I was like. This is, and then like. There's just like cute scenes where like Venom and Eddie are like trying to get to terms with each other, and they're just like hanging out, and like it's like, what am I watching?
Turns into like a weird buddy cop movie with Venom and.
It really is a buddy cop movie. That's exactly it.
Okay. Well, now I'm just super interested in what the fuck that movie actually is. So that might be why. And checking it out. That seems weird. Does maybe I shouldn't ask this because it's spoilers one way or the other. Does Carnage show up at all?
Let's just say you should, if you want to know the answer to that one, you should sit through the entire movie.
Okay. All right. Good ambiguous answer. I like it.
Okay.
Yeah. Carnage was always my favorite like villain in comics growing up. So I hope they do like a super R-rated movie with him because he's actually a pretty fucked up person in the comics, at least. I'd be interested if they can make that work.
That also is like a very cute buddy cop movie.
Yeah. Looks good. What were we saying, Co?
That character Carnage is indirectly my namesake for Carnage.
Oh.
When Carnage was actually the guild that I led, and the guild actually voted and came up with the name. And the guy that put the name forward, he did the graphics for our initial website, and he actually did it with Carnage, like with the character Carnage. So our very first guild website had like the character Carnage like whipping across the title and stuff. And I talked to him and I was like, I don't think we should base it like on a Marvel character. And then the next day he ripped out all the Carnage stuff. We just kept going with the name though.
Yeah.
Like
nice. Nice. Cool. Well, let's talk about this this whole game industry, Rami. Where to begin? There's been a lot of news this past week.
Oh my god. Yeah, we're a mess. We're a giant mess. Yeah, I mean the obvious big news was the Rockstar thing.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously very excited for Red Dead. It's not entirely my game, but they do good work, and I'm excited to just jump in a little, play a little. I don't think I can play the 65 hours. Like I'm gonna preface with like there's no way I'm finishing that game. I think.
Is that what they're saying it is, in terms of length?
Yeah, they're saying 65 hours of content.
Okay.
Yeah, 300,000 lines of recorded dialogue and like stuff like that. Just good. Like it's a lot of stuff. But there was an interview by I don't remember, was it Vulture? I think it must have been Vulture or New York Times or something like it. With Dan Houser, who is one of the, well, I mean, I guess the lead at Rockstar.
Yeah.
But he basically said that some people on the team had worked 100-hour weeks to get the game done, and like obviously he said 100 hours. Like if you're a games industry, like you're here for because you're passionate, right? You care about games, so you're more than willing to throw in a bunch more hours, and that's kind of like a sort of an understood reality of making games. Is every now and then you work a little harder than you should. But 100 hours a week, that's like 14 and a half a day.
Yeah.
If you don't take weekends, or
Right.
20 a day. If you do take, that's 4 hours. That's like 4 hours of sleep a day. And then obviously, like the industry kind of had a blowback to that, because in the industry we've been finding this idea of crunch very hard recently.
Right.
Because it's actually just it's harmful. Like we've looked at it, we've looked at the data, and it's after like 55 hours of work a week, you don't focus as well anymore. Your work will be, there'll be more errors, so you'll be introducing more bugs. Your programming gets worse, your art gets worse. Like anything you do gets worse after 55 hours. I know some of you have done really long live streams, and I'm sure you recognize that.
One of the reasons I don't do very long live streams.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, so it just hurts people, and then obviously with that comes health problems like burnout, depression, anxiety, and it's sort of this super insidious thing. It's this thing that, because everybody that's in the games industry is here because they're passionate, people don't ask like, hey, come on, let's go, we're gonna crunch today. They just kind of go like, hey, we're gonna get dinner. What do you want for dinner, right? And now you're working until 10 p.m. instead of until 6 p.m.
Sure.
So that kind of keeps happening, and obviously there was a lot of blowback. There was a lot of anger about that, and then there was a secondary statement where Dan pointed out that it's just a few people on the senior writing team, and nobody is expected to work that much. But there's obviously a lot of stuff that needs to be discussed in our industry about this, because the manager saying, well, the managing team worked 100 hours. That does have repercussions for the workers. That does have repercussions for the people working there.
It's got to trickle down somewhat.
Yeah, it's whether it trickles down, but also it sets expectations. It sets expectations for the leads that directly report to those managers. So it's one of those things where I'm sure, honestly, from what I know, a lot of my friends at Rockstar say that they've never done a 100-hour week on this project. They've done 60, which is also not good. But there's clearly also stories going around of people that have worked that hard, and it's kind of like, I love video games, right? This is my life. I've done this since I was 6. I love the output of so many great studios, and then whenever I think that there's like one person like me who just burned out and left games and is never going to make a game again because of a video game, I kind of don't think that's worth the trade, right? Because those people, they make the games. It's like you look at Telltale and you look at all those people that were laid off from Telltale with just no stability, nothing, and you're just like, are those people going to be okay? Like, are they going to be back, or are they just like, you know what, I'm done with games. Like this, I worked so hard, I put in so many hours, and then they fire me without anything, with no money, with no time to find a new job. They just lay me off, and I'm done. I mean, I can imagine if that happens to you once or twice, that you're done. You're done with games, and where do those people go? So,
right.
I don't know. Yeah, it's scary. How's your perspective on this? Because like as a developer, obviously, I have a.
I look at it and I think that in my case, and I don't want to speak for Co and Zeke, so I'm not going to, but I look at it and compare it to like my job as a streamer, and I think that there's this kind of this fascination that there's always been a little bit just in general and working and like, you see streamers constantly out there saying like, oh man, I streamed 300 plus hours this past month, like hooray for me or go me. And then, viewers are obviously excited about that because they can watch, 300 plus hours of content the past month. And I look at it and I used to celebrate that. And I think I still do more often than not. But then it's just like comparing it to this stuff. It's like, fuck, maybe we shouldn't be live that much. Like, what is this actually doing to me as a person, both health wise and like mental wise, streaming that much? Because like if I'm not streaming, I'm usually sleeping. That's kind of how it goes. Or if I'm not streaming, I'm working on something pertaining to streaming, right? That's kind of the job, I think, for a lot of streamers. So in that regard, I don't think the other side of that is if you don't stream as much, someone's just going to fill that void, right? Someone's always going to be live if you aren't. So it's a weird thing when it comes to that stuff. And then I look at, the whole video game thing, and it's I think it's definitely shitty, but I kind of feel the same way. Like, if someone's not willing to work that much time, someone will, right? Someone out there is going to be hungry and willing to put in those hours if it means that they get to stay on the team or they get to finish a passion product, etc. Right? So I don't know how all that works. The whole idea of like unionizing, I have no idea what that would even do to the industry. I think it would change it immensely. I think it's more of a societal change than just like the industry change in America. So I think it's much bigger than video games in that regard. I don't know what the answer is. I don't know if there is an answer. I think it's just shitty that people get burnt out. Luckily in our industry, like if we get burnt out, we take a couple days off and come back to it. You can't do that when your job is a 9 to 5 job where you have to show up every day, or someone above you is going to be like, hey, where's Tom today? That guy hasn't worked in 4 days. We should probably fire him and get someone else in there. So it sucks. It's a weird thing, without a doubt.
It's because like that's when I think about it, like the analogy with streamers is very close to like indies, right? And indies have the same problem with crunch, where we kind of throw ourselves because we love it, right? It's our game, so if we don't make it, nobody else will.
Yeah.
I guess for streamers, that's kind of the same. Like, if you don't stream, your stream gets hurt,
sure.
Right? Not anybody, but for these big companies, in a weird way, it's not even that. It's like if you do your job, you get your salary. If you work overtime, you get the same salary.
It's even worse, I think, in regard to devs working kind of for the bigger industry, because for streamers, if you're streaming, there's potential that someone's going to, on any minute, any time of day, is just going to be like, I'm going to celebrate this streamer and throw 100 subs or, tip something crazy. Like you said, the people working in the game industry, they have a job, they get paid money for that job, and there's no random person coming in there and saying like, here's an extra $100 because
you made some great trees in Call of Duty Black Ops 3. Here's $300.
Yeah. Right. So it's really hard to compare those two, and I don't know. It's fucking weird. Like I said, it just boils down to that weirdness for me.
It's a huge discussion in the industry, and yeah, there's been in the chat. I see a lot of discussion of unions, and I think this is a thing, especially in the US, that is a discussion that's happening right now. Like, should we unionize, and if so, do we unionize? I'm from the Netherlands, where unions are the most like normal, common thing. So I've always kind of looked at that discussion with a question mark. But yeah, it clearly, like, the US decides or like sets a lot of the agenda for what we talk about in the industry. So I mean, from my perspective, a union would be a good thing, and I would be up for that. But on the other hand, like, I don't know how the US works. I don't know what kind of effect that would have on the studios. I don't know where that will go. Like, I just think that individual developers having more voice as a group would be a good thing. Because, like, honestly, we are an exchangeable cogs. Like, we're creatives, right? Like, you can't just, sure, you can fire the person who does like some of the junior networking code, and then just get another junior networking coder. But like, that still means you've lost all the training, all the time, all the investment, all the money spent on that first person.
Right. And then the new guy will relearn everything, and then like, oh man.
Yeah. So it's that kind of thing where it's like, I don't know how it got this bad. Let me put it this way. Like, I've been part of this industry for a decade, and it's just, you think about it, and you can see how it goes from like a little passion industry to this big corporate industry, and you can see how the corporate parts started to use the passionate parts of it, and you can see how that like keeps growing.
Mm-hmm.
And then suddenly we're here. But then you feel, on the other hand, that, for something like Rockstar, when you do an interview with like Dan, who's like a manager of a massive company, that somebody should have probably told him that, hey, don't mention the 100-hour thing.
Right. Yeah.
Because it just sends such a bad message. There must be there must be a middle ground, right? Like there must be a way for him to say like, hey, we're very passionate about this game. We're working really hard. We're putting everything we have towards it without creating or perpetuating this idea that game development is only good if you destroy everything else in your life.
Right. Yeah.
Well, like the thing is there's a lot of different interesting perspectives. Like assuming the perspective of him when he said that. Like I'm sure when he said that 100-hour thing, he said it with pride. Like he later had to correct himself saying we didn't force anyone to do it. But he's going like, look, we're really serious about delivering you a quality product. Some of us have been here 100 hours, that kind of thing. And I got to admit, like there's of course a lot of bad stuff that comes in with people working that many hours a week. But at the same time, these days, I think there's also a lot to be said about like coders and programmers that really do not let themselves deliver a product that isn't quality. I mean, we live in a day where finished games are generally full of bugs.
Totally.
Full of issues. So to be honest, when I hear something like somebody going, you know, we're working hundreds of hours a week to make sure that this game is delivered like in a good thing. If it releases bug-free and awesome, that's a huge thing to me. I mean, back when I grew up, like, you know, if a game was going to be released, you know, I remember vividly when thinking about going into the game development industry, hearing about like the hell months, where it's like the last 3 months before a release, like almost everyone in the company would be working overtime because that's the time all issues surface and you do whatever you need to do to get them out. And you don't stop working until the product is done, until it's finished. And it's a product that hopefully will be a finished deliverable experience. And that's one of the reasons I feel like back in the day, even though the tech was obviously not up to today's standards, I feel like the quality of product was much higher pre-early access, much higher.
I think that might be true, yeah. But I don't think that's because of those weeks, right? I mean, I think in many ways, what the data is saying, what the science that we have is saying, is that doesn't improve the quality of your game because the overtime affects people's quality standards and ability to do good work. Same thing with a overworked QA department that also doesn't help necessarily. I do think early access has had a very negative effect on quality of games, though. Like just the ability to patch.
Well, well, that brings up another section. So we have this seemingly epidemic of games being released early in unfinished states, cash grabs. Like it's become this huge issue that is prevalent in sometimes in big AAA studios. So that kind of brings up to the next issue. Like, what is the fundamental issue with people having to work 100-hour weeks? Is it lack of experience in planning? Is it unknowns rising up? Is the issue actually in the managers of these teams and nothing to do with the devs? Like what the thing that's kind of strange is at what point are we going to say like, yeah, it sucks you're working 100-hour weeks, but why are you working 100-hour weeks? Why is the position we're in that this is the problem? Maybe how about instead of attacking this like the symptom, we kind of follow that back and try to address the disease.
Right.
But again, I'm sure this is probably one of those things where it's different for every studio and different for every project. But I feel like with the prevalence in which we see it today, there has to be common threads that can be addressed in this. And more importantly, it seems very strange that now a company comes out and says, we're busting our ass to make sure it's deliverable. And everyone's jumping down their throats for it. And it's kind of like, what's the other side of that? Being a lazy dev and putting in the minimum amount of hours and then going home game and then release the game unfinished.
Right.
Like there's definitely arguments on both sides, and of course, 100-hour work week is not healthy and shouldn't be done. But what if he had said a 70-hour work week?
It would still not be okay, honestly.
Like at what point is it going to be like, wow, you guys worked hard and really deserve it, and it's not like, wow, you guys are working too hard and that's unhealthy.
I think the thing that made it a bigger issue for Rockstar is that they are one of the few studios that's 100% in control of everything they do. Right? They're in control of their release date. They're in control of their schedule. They're in control of their marketing. They're in control of they have full control on everything. So the idea that anybody would have to crunch at a studio that is still making millions of dollars on Grand Theft Auto 5 online,
right? Month over month,
and
still the highest earning game. Yeah.
Yeah, could set their own release date, had their own time, was not in a hurry because they hadn't mentioned a release date until relatively recently. I think that's one of the part that's really upsetting to a lot of developers, because for a lot of developers, what we like to believe is that crunch is a result of a mix of factors, right? It's the corporate influence, where there's like the income, the quarterly income, the financials, they have to look good. So games get planned against that. Release dates. So release dates are deadlines they can't miss, because otherwise you damage the publisher or the corporation. And then on top of that, there's very high expectations from the audiences, right, to deliver as high quality a product. But the audiences have obviously gotten used to games that have had crunch thrown at them. So when we see something like Uncharted, and you see in the distance this tiny little village, and you go check it out in like a debug mode, and it's like a full village that clearly a team of artists worked on a week, and it's just this tiny little background element in the final game. A lot of people look at it and go like, wow, that's so cool. And I look at it and I'm like, oh my God, this could have been a Photoshop image. Like if this was a billboard at Sprite, nobody would have noticed.
Right.
But people got used to that level of like care and work in a game. Well, on the other side, like you could argue that maybe the solution isn't to work harder, but smarter. And then the final part that is really, what that like super correctly identified, is its planning, right? Producers in the games industry have also partially gotten used to the idea that, oh shit, we're behind on schedule. Well, I guess 2 weeks of crunch will fix it.
Right.
So we kind of plan that into how we do that, how we plan our game, and that becomes a problem as well. So there's a lot of counter movement towards all this. Yeah, in a way, you will see it in people taking some shortcuts when developing, right? Like, I don't think the quality of the game has to go down, but yeah, if you only have like work hours, you only have 40 work hours a week per person, then that's going to be a different game than you have 100 work hours per person. So that either means games are going to be more expensive, or they're going to take more time to make, or we're going to take shortcuts. But I think when you look at the games industry, I'm actually quite hopeful, because you look at something like Fortnite, and that's a pretty like financially smartly built game. It's not the top of the world graphics. There's a lot of asset reuse, but it still plays and works well. Yeah. People still enjoy that game. That's kind of like, we're in this weird spot where the industry is shifting and we don't know what the results are. We just don't right now. So we'll see.
I'm curious, because the people that were talking about the 100, or the people that were working said 100-hour work weeks or whatever, are the writers. So it seems like writing it's a creative process. So I'm wondering like what a 100-hour work week of that looks like, because a coder is, has like a certain amount of like things. It's like math, like, but this is like more of the creative process. So I'm wondering how much of that 100-hour work week is just them sitting going like, should he say damn or hell?
Well, probably it's writing the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of flavor NPC texts.
And then recording it, yeah.
Dialogue. It's and then of course planning and structuring all the things that come. You write one line on paper, and that is the graphic that needs to be made for that bubble, the line being recorded for the speech, the NPC it gets attached to. Like one little line from a story writer is going to explode into 5 different people's job. So it may be something related to that, or more importantly, they're talking about like 300,000 recorded voice lines or something. All of those need to be written.
Yeah.
So that's like a lot of work. I do have to say though that I was kind of surprised that those people were doing work this late in the project, considering it gets released like as soon as it is. It was kind of strange to hear that those are the people that are busting ass for 100 hours, because again, that's like the start of the work, and then you have to like get it in the game and implement it and record it and everything. Yeah. And it makes me wonder like how much more do they have to work on this game? Wasn't it gold, or is it gold already?
It makes you think how much of that is a day one patch. Like at the end of the day, like how much of the game are they adding in at the last possible second before someone boots it up for the first time?
Maybe a small fun insight into the place of writers in a game is there's this joke in the industry that is the writers will fix it. And very often when you make a game, you kind of don't start from a story. A lot of AAA games don't start from a story. They start with like set pieces or moments or feelings that you want the player to have, right? Like watching a nuke launch in the background, or Call of Duty Modern Warfare, like crashing your helicopter, and then like your character. This is spoilers for a game that's like 15 years old, so I'm just going to go ahead. Like your helicopter crashing after a nuclear blast, or like you want to like rappel down a building and then like kick through a window and then do like a slow motion thing. Sorry about the spoilers, people. So you create these moments, you create these set pieces, you create these levels, and then you just kind of go like, wait, actually, we don't have time to finish this level, so we're going to cut that out. And the voice actor that was going to do this scene, they're already on a movie, so we don't have access to them anymore, so we can't have this dialogue. And then you bring in the writing team, and they just go like, okay, listen, we don't have this scene anymore. This level is entirely gone. So here's what we have. Here's the voice clips we have. Can you turn this into a story, please? And then the writers fix it.
Right.
And that's literally one of the most common jokes in the games industry is like, the writers will fix it. They'll make something coherent out of it. And there's incredible stories of like game stories that are very well reviewed and like super, like people say like some of the best writing in the games industry. And then if you hear the background story, it's like, yeah, that came together in the last 3 weeks before Gold. Like, sorry.
or funny story. Sometimes it never comes together, and that's how Graveyard Keeper ends.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Exactly.
Sometimes the writers just can't fix it.
It's funny. What was I playing? I think it was actually Assassin's Creed. There's some points towards end game where scenes have like very little transition and things just happen and are said, and you're like, the entire reason they said that was just to say it. There's no link between the last sentence that was said and this sentence. They just wanted to make sure that the player knew this. And now with you saying that, it kind of makes sense. Is they just didn't have it created. The scene didn't get, coded to make that transition work. They just had to say this thing because it's important to the overall story.
And it's extra fun because the way Ko explained it is extreme. That's exactly on point. Like changing one line of dialogue means it has to be re-recorded, it has to be monitored, it has to be mixed, it has to be implemented. The coder has to make sure that there's no problems with it. We have to check whether it fits the asset pipeline. Like there's all this stuff that needs to happen. So when they let the writer fix it, they also just kind of go like, this is all we have in terms of recording. So you have to make it work with this. Like we can't re-recording. So that's how you get scenes like that where it's like, I don't think this was supposed to be said here. Like, but it just, sometimes level 1 moves to like level 7, right? Like the opening level turns into like a halfway point, and like stuff like that is just, it's honestly that any game development ever releases is incredible, but knowing that video games are mostly duct tape, it makes me appreciate this industry so much more.
Sure. Yeah.
I just wanted to, can you, people were saying my volume was too loud. I think it was because of my gain or whatever. I turned it down. Are we good now?
Yeah, you sound fine to me. Yeah, sounds good. Yeah.
Something I wanted to say earlier was I didn't mean to imply that coding wasn't creative.
It's all right. Matthew Mercer's not a real actor,
But you can play a game with right. You can play a game with bad writing, but bad coding. You can't actually play the game, right?
Sure.
It's more malleable. Like coding is less malleable than writing is.
Right. No, I get what you're saying. You don't have to worry about correcting that.
With coding, the people that experience the product of the code are not usually in a position to see the artistry that goes into it.
To judge the code.
Right.
Yeah.
No, the real art in code work is like how you do it and the nuance of the style and like, what types of structures you choose when, like it to a player, the coder does a great job if they never know any of that stuff. Like that's when it's great, is when you don't know any of that. But in the background, oh man, like a good coder versus a bad coder, a coder that is artistic and cares about organization and comments in something versus like somebody who's just trying to get it done. It's like the difference between looking at, you know, like a Picasso and like a kid's drawing. It really is like it can be vast. But,
well, and it's funny that you mention that. It's funny that you say that because there are some novices out there who need to be educated that can't tell the difference between a Picasso and a kid's drawing.
which is funny, a very valid point, this exact discussion. Because that's exactly, if you don't know coding, you can see both and get no appreciation either way. So really good point.
There was this comment that I thought was this chat response that I thought would be funny to point out. Somebody said so many game plots just turn into trash fires by the end, and they wonder why so few people finish games. It's actually the other way around. We know that most people don't finish games, so we put the trash at the end. That's like genuinely how games industry works. Like you put your best content in the opening parts because 70% of people finish the first 3 hours of game.
That makes sense.
And you can verify that by just looking at achievements,
trophies. Yeah,
you look at you look at the achievements or trophies. Like pretty much everybody will play the first like few hours of a game they bought. But we also know that like 30 to 50% of people ever finish a game. So we put extra effort in the opening. Absolutely, everybody will play that.
It's crazy how succinct that is, Rami. Because I'm playing a game right now called Pathfinder, and in the first 30 hours, I was like, "Oh, this is like the best game ever. This is amazing." Because that's like that's the only part of the game that actually QA'd. And then once you get past a certain point, like huge, it all just falls apart. It just completely falls apart. And what's hilarious is at the beginning, before they started patching it, the bugs you would get were bugs that every single person would get. It's not like you had to do things in a certain way or do a certain thing. Like everyone was getting the same bugs. So it became super clear to everyone, like that's exactly what they did, what you just said. They put their best foot forward. They nailed down the beginning of the game. And then they just hoped they'd have the rest fixed by the time people got there. Yep. And they're frantically trying to do that right now. They're putting out a patch every 2 days. It's crazy how fast they're trying to clean it up. But there's no question that the first part of the game, it's like two different devs. Like it's crazy.
Yeah.
You know what I'd like to see in chat? I want to ask chat a question, and I want you to put in chat the best game that you know of with the worst ending. Like the worst last part of the game. It's like, oh man, this game was so good until it ended, and I was just like, oh, you fuck.
I'm trying to think of what my answer would be to that.
Mass Effect 3.
A lot of Mass
Effect 3 is like the hugest one, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I don't know what my
I'm not like maybe I don't mean disappointing. Maybe I mean just it was.
Ooh, someone nailed Final Fantasy 15. I think that's my game.
Yeah.
Really? I love the ending of 15.
I really like the ending of Final Fantasy 15.
It was an ending. I'll say that much. I wanted something else from it, I think. It wasn't necessarily trash or terrible or anything. I just wanted something else. I'm trying to think.
Yeah, great. For me, one recent memory for me is easily Graveyard Keep.
Yeah, I remember you telling us about that.
And that's more in line to what I'm talking about, is what Ko's talking about, because the Graveyard Keeper game, like by the way I'm hearing it, it was not because you didn't like the ending. It's because it felt like, did it feel like people got like lazy or like it ran out of time to finish it, something like that? Or
yes, not only was it lazy and unfinished, but there were other parts of the games that like were referenced to what the ending would be that were just completely ignored. It was full of spelling mistakes and grammatical errors, and it made like no sense in the context. Like it seriously, it was an absolute mess. Like it seriously, it felt like a placeholder ending that they put in lieu of a real ending. And then it's like,
and that's more of what I'm talking about.
You know what the sad thing is?
Firewatch 2, that's a good one.
The sad thing that I'm now realizing is that we're having a discussion that we probably won't be able to have in like 10 years because games endings are going away, right? Like the whole idea of the game ending is fading out so fast.
That's true.
Kind of scary.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is actually very fun discussion.
Do you really think that game endings are gonna like? It's like movies movies are a thing, and series are like series continue. Like they don't create a series more often than not with like a solid like we're gonna do this for exactly 6 seasons and then we're done. You know, it's like, can we get picked up again? And like, can we keep going? And that kind of thing. And then, but people will still make movies where they're like beginning, middle, end. Exactly. You don't think games will have beginning, middle, end forever?
I think that's just the change of the medium, right? Like games as a service is a thing. If publishers could never, if every publisher could do what Rockstar did with GTA 5, they'd do it in a heartbeat because it's constant cash flow every single month for Rockstar. And I think you're trying to see people do that as well. They just can't do what Rockstar did with it.
Yeah, because to be Rockstar, you have to be Rockstar. This is the same thing with like CD Projekt, where people are like, well, CD Projekt doesn't have to do microtransactions. I'm like, they're CD Projekt. They're like, they're a studio that started in Poland in very different economical circumstances. They managed to grow with 2 semi-successful games and then had effectively infinite money to make one of the best games ever made with The Witcher 3, right? And now they're working on Cyberpunk. Like, yes, it's a very different sort of situation, but I think as the industry is going right now, and I hope this is just a wave again, right? Is we're moving towards games as a service that will continue to continue their story, but because of their structure, they kind of have to be set up like TV series, like Zeke said, is they have to make a story that never properly ends, because if it ends, you can't continue it.
Yeah.
Right. So the stories are kind of like a structure that the game hangs on, and then the gameplay has to be repetitive and repeatable, because that way Twitch streamers play it and never stop playing it. And that way people that buy it will keep playing their games, because that's one of the biggest demographical shifts that we're seeing in games right now is people play less games or fewer games. What's the right one? Fewer or less?
Fewer.
Let's go with fewer.
Fewer. Always use fewer in cases of ambiguousness.
Yeah.
All right, fewer. So this is a good grammatical rule. Always use fewer. Okay. So people are playing fewer games for more time. Right. So games like Fortnite show that most clearly, but PlayerUnknown Battleground, Call of Duty, stuff like that. It used to be that was sort of like considered the more casual part of the games industry, is people who just play a Call of Duty a year and they maybe buy a FIFA or a Forza, and that's about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
That was considered sort of like the hardcore casual crowd. That crowd is now the majority of our industry. Games are 60+ hours or repetitive online multiplayer games as service models, Destiny, Fortnite, Anthem, Minecraft. So of course everybody is trying to do that because it makes money. It makes more money than making a single $60 game with like $40 of DLC. It makes more money than doing a single player game with microtransactions, because everybody will hate you for it.
Yeah.
So they just do the thing that makes sense, which is make an infinite game without an ending.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to think of where we want to take this conversation. I guess kind of my thought, one of the other thoughts that came into mind when kind of throughout this entire conversation is this idea that AAA games have just become this giant monstrosity that take, God of War took 5 years or something like that to complete, where they can only really get one of those games out in a generation of consoles in the normal console cycle. Do you think that's going to be the case, where you're going to start to see like a game from every major AAA company moving forward, or do you think they're still going to try to crunch and do whatever they can economically to get the most bang out of each console cycle, or most money out of each console cycle?
I mean, God of War is an interesting one, and same honestly goes for Spider-Man, because they're technically first and second party games, right? So they're games made exclusively for a platform, with their main purpose being selling that platform. So they can kind of afford to do that, because if God of War just sells a lot of PlayStations, fine, right? It doesn't.
Yeah,
that's a win. It doesn't make all its money from selling copies of the game. So even if they had made a little loss on the game, and it would have been fine, right? And the same goes for games like The Last Guardian. So they can do that. Like they can do big single player stories with like deep emotional endings and like no microtransactions, because effectively you're paying for the game by buying every game for that platform. Right? Every PlayStation game you buy, 30% goes to Sony effectively. So yeah, you don't need a microtransaction in God of War, because you having God of War means you're already paying those 30%.
You're already invested in that console.
Yeah, you're already there. Like they're making money off of you. And if you buy a PlayStation 4 for God of War, awesome. That means 30% of all your game spending is now Sony's. Like that's good enough. Like they don't need extra money.
I never actually thought about that before. Like some of the best big like contained stories within games that I played have been Sony like exclusive games, like
especially recently,
like God of War and like my game of the year last year, the Horizon Zero Dawn. Like,
yeah,
I never even thought about that. Wow.
Yeah.
Now, Rami, I have to say, you may have just said something that I fundamentally and spiritually disagree with you on just now.
Uh-oh.
Let's go.
Uh-oh.
You just said that the company doesn't need to make any more money.
Sure.
Like, I don't know, man. Like, I don't think that's ever a reason for them to stop doing something. Like, I don't think they've ever, we could put in these, but I think we have enough money on this.
We crushed our Q1 earnings. We don't need to do Q2.
Yeah,
we're doing great. I agree with Ko.
Actually. Yeah. I was doing that as a joke, but then that made me realize, like, I wonder if the like, obviously they could do things like that to make money. And now other companies are doing that stuff, kind of thing, to make more money, which means they probably are making the decision not to do it. Which then means, you think that the negative PR from that kind of stuff is just that bad that they realize, like, hey, it's not worth the amount of extra money we make?
Sure.
Yeah.
It's not just that. I think it's just a good, like, we've reached a point where saying our game has no microtransactions. It's genuinely a selling point.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, you can't buy shit in our game. It's like, let's go, let's buy the game.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wonder if it's going to be an ESRB rating in the future, where it's like, no microtransactions. You get like a little badge on the box or something.
That's happening.
It's happening in Europe right now with loot boxes.
Yep.
Yeah.
There you go.
What was that? Belgium that said you have to start saying that it has loot boxes?
The Netherlands and Belgium.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like it's basically just gambling or some shit like that, right?
Yeah. If you have a game in which you have a loot box that doesn't tell you what you're going to get up front, and you can trade the items you get from loot boxes with other players, then it's gambling.
Yeah.
So
it used to be the only place you could gamble as a kid was at Chuck E. Cheese.
Right. Right.
Or the sweepstakes on the wall down by the mart.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a fascinating, there's a lot of weird pressures on our industry right now. Money-wise is obviously a huge problem. We're not just, industry isn't generating enough profits, and the people that are generating profits are very specific publishers, genuinely. Like, the platforms are making tons of money. Steam, Sony, Microsoft,
right,
Nintendo. For developers, some publishers are making a ton of money, but then everybody else is just kind of dying. Like everybody is not, everything is not like
laugh, but yeah, you're right.
Casual, everyone else is just kind of dying.
Yeah, it's all just kind of not doing that well.
But like, you just look at the last few months. What shut down? Capcom Vancouver shut down. Telltale shut down.
Totally.
I think Big Fish laid off a bunch of people. Like everybody. It's just closing down. Because we can't compete anymore with the bigger publishers, and the bigger publishers are doing so well that it's effectively turning into the iOS market, where there's like five publishers that make 95% of games,
right?
And then everybody else
95% of the games, yeah.
Like, have you heard of Tencent?
Oh yeah, Tencent buys a game company every day, and no one talks about it.
We have some Path of Exile players here. So we were after Grinding Gears had an 85% stake bought by Tencent just a few months ago.
I think the funny thing, and I didn't realize this till someone recently told me about it, is that Tencent buys a game company almost every single day, but it doesn't get reported because there's no point to report it. Because they don't really fuck with the game. They just think about how they can take that game and bring it into the Chinese market to make them money. Like, that's their entire business from the most part is how do we take this game and put it in the Chinese market?
Do you remember Fortnite and PlayerUnknown suing each other?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Do you realize that that's a Tencent owned company suing a almost majority Tencent owned company? I was just like, are you kidding me?
Yeah, I think there's been a lot of lawsuits where companies that are owned by Tencent are then suing Tencent, and it's like what? It's like, how does that even make any sense? But that's just kind of what Tencent is in general.
That might be the
yeah. Everyone talked at once. Zeke, go first, then go.
Well, that might be the most like closest thing to literally the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing.
Or it doesn't. They don't care because they win at the end of the day, right? The person controlling both hands wins. So who fucking cares if the two hands fight?
I hate you. I hate you.
Yeah.
Well, you guys know that Coke and Pepsi are owned by the same insurance company.
Oh, yeah. If we start doing that shit, it's like 7 companies that own everything in the world.
Don't get JP started. He's gonna pull up.
Let me show you my garage code. We've got
and behind
conspiracy.
it the red strings.
Woo. It's crazy.
Dude, I hope so. But no, damn it, what was it? So what is kind of hilarious is it's great that's how people feel, JP. Where we live in this day and age where a giant conglomerate like Tencent can kind of slowly acquire companies in the background. The only thing that's going to be hilarious is in 4 years when they own 80% of game developers.
Yeah, man.
And then some giant decree where it's just like, we're adding the Tencent game shop to all future games involving Tencent, and overnight the entire realm of game development.
I mean, that's the big fear, right?
Owned enough stuff to do something like that.
Totally. I mean, that you can put that into other industries as well. Like right now with Disney and Fox. Like Disney's going to buy Fox. There's not much we can do about it. And then the amount of IPs that will be under the Disney flag is it's insane. There's a map out there somewhere that I saw of every IP that they would own at that point. And it's pretty much like 90% of almost all media that you consume will be controlled by one company.
Well, if you want to send some money to Tencent, Venom is also Tencent, I think.
Really?
So,
they own the movie?
I think they published it in Europe anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I don't know. There's a lot of weird pressures on the industry. So the biggest pressures are financially. The amount of risk you have to take to make a game no longer stacks up to the amount of gain you can get from it. Because even if you make a really good game, the money is going to go to the publisher. The publisher is going to invest it in broadening their portfolio instead of like consolidating it. Because just having one game right now isn't good enough unless you're Fortnite. And if you're Fortnite, then you make infinite money anyway, so you don't really need to discuss or talk about it anymore.
When was the last time, Rami, that I guess AAA is the thing that I'll throw it. Like, when was the last time a company made a AAA game that wasn't under like a giant flag, like an EA or an Activision or anything like that did well? Has it been like 10 years?
Wasn't that the definition of AAA though?
I get maybe yeah. You might be right about that, Co. Maybe to change that up is like, what was the last big game that wasn't owned by someone under an umbrella?
Chat is nailing it. It's The Witcher. It's probably The Witcher.
Oh, Witcher. Well, Witcher 3 specifically, right? Probably.
Yeah. That was AAA. Hellblade is a weird one because it's hard to say that it's AAA, and League is a hard one because it's not really AAA either. I guess The Witcher is probably because then The Witcher is GOG, CD Projekt, so it's like it kind of gets weird there as well.
Some great people in chat or some great suggestions. Chat. Metro is actually a great example. Metro games, I would call them AAA. They're fantastic games.
I would agree with that.
4A, by no means, like they're not. Well, actually, I don't know these days, but I at the time, I don't think they had any big overreaching triple anus.
I think they're now.
Oh, that
deep silver now.
Anus.
Triple anus.
Oh my god.
My ears, they pick it up. I have no control.
That's the term now. Hey, you working for one of those triple anus companies?
Are they deep silver now though? The Metro Exodus is deep silver, I thought.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think they've since been brought under the umbrella of a publisher. So that may be a little bit, yeah.
And then
I don't know.
Deep Silver is not owned by anyone, right? They're their own publishing.
I mean, neither is EA, but
yeah.
yeah.
I'm just saying there's no one bigger above them. But
this is actually something I've been wanting to ask somebody, maybe with knowledge of it, being Rami. What? No, I'm just saying, like, when I say AAA or when I hear AAA, there can't be that many like companies that are AAA. What would you say? Like, I mean, there's got to be like less than 10, right? That would count as AAA.
There's a few more. There's a few more. In terms of studios, I would say there's probably 100, like 120-ish at the moment that you could really count as AAA, and a lot of them are satellite studios for bigger studios. So there's like 10 UB studios around the world. There's like a number of Rockstar ones around the world.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. Like, reduce them, or not reduce them, but like follow the tree up to till you get to the top of the studio. Like the names that are AAA, like Ubisoft, Bethesda, like top of the tree.
There's not a lot left anymore. Honestly, and that's one of the scary things, because it used to be a lot more. That used to be like just hundreds on that level, but now it's not.
10, 15.
Yeah, it's like there's dozens of names that people would immediately recognize, and that's about it. And then people are pointing out like Japan and China have their own industries that sort of stay internal.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, as in the things that would be recognized by people in the US or Europe, that's not that many left. And that's scary because it means things have consolidated, which also means the risk goes up, right? And the risk just keeps going up. Like the risk in terms of how much money you have to spend to make a game goes up. Because the risk for how much money you have to make, how much money you have to use to make a game goes up, the amount of money that gets spent on marketing goes up. Because if you invest $100 million, you're not going to let it fail on investing $100 million in marketing, right? You're just going to invest that money. If you have a $300 million budget, you spend 150 on making a game, you spend 150 on making sure you earn back those $300 million. And then on top of that, like, you're also going to look at how you are selling the game, because if you can sell your game for $60 and that's it, but you can also sell it for $60 and then spend another year making DLCs and then sell those for $15 each. I mean, think about it. If a game takes like 3 years and a full team to make, and you get $60 out of it, and a DLC takes a third of a team and 3 months to make, and you get $15, that's actually a really good deal. Right? That's way less money invested in a DLC than invested in the main game.
Totally. And the funny thing is, consumers will see the $15 and be like, that's not too much. But they'll see the $60 and be like, fuck, that's so much money. Right? Mm-hmm. Which is, it's really interesting.
There's that. There's Twitch. So the repeatable games are usually more successful. There's the microtransactions, which means that some companies are just getting ahead with how much money they're making, because nobody can compete with what Fortnite is making at the moment. And that's all microtransactions. So that's sending an interesting signal to the industry.
Right.
There's obviously there's sort of like the pushback on microtransactions that people also have to worry about. But you think about it and you look at it, people complain about them, but the numbers in terms of what people are buying don't lie. And they also are the numbers that the decision makers look at. I mean, nobody on the battle. I think nobody I know on the Battlefront 2 team wanted to do micro, right? Most developers don't want to do micro. It's just how they keep their job.
Right. So, it's the way the publishers can pay them. It's in some regard. Yeah.
Yep.
Which is shitty, because then you have people like us out there using that as a defense. Unlike, well, this is why microtransactions exist, is so that people can keep their job.
Yep.
Which sucks, because it's like we're using that against, or we're not using it against, but we're using it as a way to be like, well, this is why they exist.
Yeah. And then there's obviously there's a discussion like should free to play, should that be in multiplayer games because it's unfair, right? If somebody can buy a better weapon, it's like, well, that should be cosmetic. But then what about single player games? And people go, well, they should never be in single player games. But it's kind of weird because in a single player game, it's literally just you. Like you're not getting an unfair advantage in any way because you're the only one playing. And people go, well, I already paid $60 for a game. That's fair enough, like or $100. Like,
yeah,
I'll
I
accept
can already.
that as a reason.
Co's thinking he's cheap. You're cheapening the experience by buying that stuff. I know
I
exactly
saw
what's
your
it
face
goes like.
immediately. It was so good.
Very different. My point is going back to what we talked about last week. It's
Right.
not quite that easy because giving players the option of changing their in-game experience with the purchase of money means that there's a solid chance that the game design aspect of that product will then attempt to lead the player to that purchase.
Totally.
That leading is not there if the purchase option isn't available. So just saying that it's the same, but you're solo is different because then that brings in all this other like stuff that can never be confirmed by the player. You have people like me get really nervous about it, and you know that I don't know. I just don't think it's quite as cut and dry. And I think ACO
It never is. Yeah.
You know, something that might like this is just like dreaming pie in the sky thing, but what might make the endings of games like better is if you can pay to like complete the game. Like to make it easier to get to the end.
It's called watching the YouTube video and getting the ad rev for the person that posted it. That's what you pay to see. It's the end.
Like
on
everybody's completing their games now because they can just pay to get to the end. They can just get overpowered. So we got to make the endings better.
That's actually something that last week I wish I would have thought about because I immediately after we ended that show I was like, the reason I never finished Witcher 3 was because it took so long for me to level in that game. Had they included some sort of leveling boost, I would have finished that game. I bet you. I guarantee you I would have saw the ending of that.
That's the weird thing because Co again, as always, is 100% right on this one. Like a game with micros like that is usually designed to push people towards micros, right? And I hate that as much as anything, honestly, because when you think about it, all the games I've done have been single-player experiences, and Ridiculous Fishing was even made to be as close to a free-to-play game as possible, and then just not include any free-to-play stuff. Right? We made a free-to-play game and then sold it as premium because we didn't want to do that stretching in the game to make the micros more interesting.
Right.
But I think, on the other hand, there is very much an argument to be made that level skips, or what used to be cheat codes, effectively, could have a place in post-development games. Like what you were saying with The Witcher, I'm very much the same, and the same thing for Red Dead Redemption 2. I'm never going to finish that game. I would love to finish that game, but I don't have 65 hours to play, and I would love to. I would love to just do that. Assassin's Creed Odyssey had a very similar thing where there was a discussion about the 15 hours of intro the game has.
Right before it.
If that game
opens up
said if that game told me like there's an option to just skip those 15 hours and we'll give you a like 2-minute video on kind of what happens, I'll take that because I just want to get to the part where I can play the game. I want to run around ancient Greek culture, like climb up giant statues. And how are there that many like penises in that game? Like honestly, I don't know how that got through certification or anything.
I mean, you can have an orgy with a goat in that game if so.
Fair enough.
So,
times have changed.
Yeah. Think back to the first Assassin's Creed and think to the most recent one. It's a little fucking weird. It's
Assassin's Creed Odyssey. Rami Ismail gives this game penis out of 10.
Yeah.
But yeah, so there's this weird balance right now where I guess the industry is trying to not drown, and we haven't figured out why. Like this, we are genuinely trying. And I think I don't know if we've ever talked about this before, but I think I remember doing this on a bit on the stream with you guys. Like when you think about it, this entire industry, the way we work is we're usually ahead of any legislation, right? So it's not like there's any rules anywhere around the world about what is moral free to play or what is ethical free to play or what is legal free to play. We just do it.
Yeah.
And if we accidentally take $1,000 from a kid with poor parents, but they left their credit card logged in, we're just going to go like, well, hey, listen, that's not our responsibility, which is messed up. Like, don't get me wrong, that's super messed up. But here's the thing. As an industry, how we've come to deal with that is we just all slowly push things until it's too far, right? Which happened for the first time with EA Battlefront.
Right.
And then every other studio goes,
fuck, we're not doing that.
You know,
let's cancel all our future
blowback.
plans.
And then they just go like, okay, cancel all that. Put out the press statement. We were never going to do that, right? Like, that's not did you see that? Unacceptable. We would never treat our players like that. That's just like, I know at least 3 or 4 companies that pulled out microtransaction plans from like pretty soon upcoming releases at Battlefront. You can usually see it.
Yeah.
Because there's still free-to-play mechanics in those games, even though they're not there, like they're not in the game anymore. Like, I will guarantee you, there was somebody at work that day in a marketing department, and they were just like browsing the news, and they saw the Battlefront thing, and it's going like, Jake, hey, are we still doing the micro thing? Yeah, kill it, take it out.
But hey, we worked on this for a long time.
No, not doing it. I'm putting out the statement right now. It's messed up.
Twitter's going crazy, Jake. You got to kill it. You got to listen to them.
No, I've been working a 100-hour work week to get this shit done, and you're telling me we're killing it?
Twitter is upset.
Spend 100 hours.
Stop
100 hours getting it out. Getting it out.
Hey, guys, it's a good idea, but 10 cents said no. We got to do it.
Yeah. That's right.
All right, you guys going bowling tonight? I'll see you there.
No, we're ordering dinner. You want some?
Oh, no.
Yeah.
No, but Rami, it's funny that you say that because like we had Battlefront with loot box, and that like exercised loot box. And then before that, it's kind of funny because you look at Assassin's Creed and you can see you can buy all these things. You can buy time enhancements, everything. One thing you can't buy is skill points. You can't purchase skill points in Assassin's Creed.
Right.
That might be the entire Deus Ex franchise was sunk because they let you buy skill points. So it's like, it really is kind of companies like testing. Can we do this?
They're
no, it
always
didn't work.
testing the
Maybe
waters.
Can we do this? No, that didn't work for them. Maybe we shouldn't do that. So it's like they're just really kind of making like how much money, how much blood can we squeeze out of this stone? You know, it's just like, oh my Lord, it's dangerous. It's crazy. Like to just see what they'll do for this.
Yep.
Well, it's always towing the line between like how much money can we make and how pissed off will people get, and will it be enough to like cause an uproar like in certain games? Like, how can we get money out of people without pissing them off, kind of a thing? I think this is like the watch.
Of course, that's kind of the balance. Like when you think about it, our job is smoke and mirrors. Like my entire job, the most honest version of explaining game development is we make you believe that the shit on your screen matters. That's it. That's my entire job. Is I make a high score game and then you get 2,000 points. That means nothing. It's genuine. Like in real life, it just means nothing. It's higher than 1,500. True.
Right.
But like 1,500 also means nothing, right? And all these worlds that we're saving in games, like those don't exist. They're polygons and they're like calculations. Like that's how this works. The thing is, it doesn't matter that it doesn't have that value because it matters to you, right? It matters to you as a player. Games don't take place on a computer. They take place in your head. That's where they always take place. And that's where the beauty of games are because they're your own. They're not just what I create. If I make a game, that's just my part in it. It isn't real until you as a player play it, right? And that's when a game starts to happen. So there's this weird part of gaming that is not about what the creator makes. It's about what the player brings to it. But that also creates this really weird situation where to make a game and to earn money, you both have to work with the player and against the player at the same time. We have to work and create interesting obstacles for you. So we're effectively just trying to screw you over and over. And then you overcome those so you feel good, right? And then we create a slightly more difficult obstacle, and then you beat that, and then you feel good. But the same thing goes with money. we need this to be real to you, so you will buy into it. And that's kind of like the thing that we're getting really good at right now. And also one of the reasons I find microtransactions often so scary is because we've gotten really good at making you believe in our games, in our worlds, in our characters, in our high scores. So it's really kind of weird. What we're doing is we're trying to convince you of the realness of fictional worlds, so that you can feel good about yourself, so you can have like a meaningful experience, but also so we can get money out of you.
So you can spend money on that experience, yeah.
Yeah. It's a really weird, like let me tell you, as a game developer, this is one of the weirdest conversations you have in your head all the time. It's like, okay, we can give people this experience, and that will be awesome, but also it will cost us 3.5 months, and Jake won't go home tonight. And like, you know, like there's all, poor Jake, it's always Jake. And then ultimately, you know, like we also have to like, sometimes I've genuinely cut a feature because I thought we didn't have, it would cost too much money, and the amount of people that I thought would never play it or just buy the game in a sale was too high. And I'm just like, you know what, let's just cut this. Let's focus on making this part of the game better, right? Because I don't think it'll be worth it in the end. And it's just kind of weird how much you're balancing, like the economics and the creative and the fun, and like, I don't know, in a way we're kind of magicians, I guess. Like it's smoke and mirrors, but as long as you believe in it, it's good.
Yeah, it's the old willful suspension of disbelief, right? Sure. It's saying like, here's this world. I'm going to say like, fuck the real world for now. I'm going to, it's for plays and movies and video games and all that stuff, escapism, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, it's creating a world that you can go, you know what? I'm going to let the reality of everything go and just be a part of this.
I gotta say though, Rami, I don't think you're giving yourself enough credit, because one thing that I think is very important is for a magician, for instance, you pay to go see a magician because we have a limited amount of hours on this planet. And we know that by giving them something that we've spent our time earning, our money, they're going to deliver a good experience that we feel is worth that money and is something that takes up, in some cases, hours of our life that, you know, we feel were spent in a good manner. So when people are giving you money for your game, and especially if they enjoy it, like I know Nuclear Throne, I know people that have hundreds of hours in Nuclear Throne. I mean, the amount of quality time that influences in their life, that's impactful. Like that's by no, you know, that's there's nothing smoke and mirror about that. That's a time that they will remember fondly. And in some cases, like I said, for the price, it's pennies when you work out how much time is in it. Like this little high score game that you have coming out, it might be a kind of cheapy game, but at the same time, if you're in your mind building that narrative of wanting to constantly beat you, and maybe if you have a small group of friends and you all try to constantly one up each other, and it's all in this world you crafted, like that if anything, that exacerbates the value of that world. And it certainly wouldn't cheapen it on the back end. It would just make the amount of smaller resources going into it just that much more impressive.
Yeah. No, but I think like, and thank you for like, that's not the reason I'm here. The reason I'm in games is for that reason, right? When I was a kid, I had a doctor, right? I don't like, for those who don't know me, like I'm half Dutch, half Egyptian, right? And the Dutch are a pretty rich country. The Netherlands are a pretty rich country. So my mom's attitude towards life and work was always just go do something you like. And as long as, you know, you're healthy and happy, then it's fine. And my dad is Egyptian, which is a relatively poor country. So my dad always had like, I had 4 options four jobs I could pick in life, right? I could be a doctor, an engineer, a lawyer, or a disgrace to the family. And those were the 4 job opportunities I had. And so I was at a doctor, and the doctor basically asked me like, well, what do you want to be when you grow old? And I was just like, well, I must have been like 11. And he asked like, what do you want to be when you grow old? And I was like, well, I want to make games, video games. But my dad says I should have like a real job like you know, so I can help people. And my doctor just looked at me and he said like, well, you know what? It's my job to make people healthy, but it can be your job to make people happy. And that's just as important. And I was like, well, you know what? I could do that. And he's right, because like after Super Crate Box come out, I got this email from a kid who was sick and in a hospital, and like the treatment was like kicking his ass, and he just send us an email, just be like, hey, when everything gets like too much and I'm in pain and I'm like tired and like I just play a few rounds of Super Crate Box, and it helps me, like it distracts me from that, right? I get so many emails about ridiculous fishing and Nuclear Throne, about people who are just in bad parts of their life and they feel better. They have like something to focus on, something to feel good at. And like, that's the beauty of, like, I've cried at every single one of those messages, because it's the beauty of our medium. It's the beauty of what we do. It's like, we give people meaningful experiences and sure, it's smoke and mirrors and all that, but it doesn't matter, because all that matters is that it's in your head and it's real in your head and it matters in your head. And it's honestly, it's an honor and a privilege to get to create these things, right? Like, I have a good time with game development, like say 80% of the time. And the other 20% are like, really hard work and sometimes like excruciating, but it's a beautiful medium to work on. It's a beautiful medium to be a part of. And it's incredibly powerful. And just, it has so much room for more people, for more players, for more experiences. So I've been wanting to be a game developer since I was 6, and being here, it's still always it's a little unreal. But I do think, like, in a way, like, part of why I'm on a show like you guys is you are awesome people. And the chat is lovely. But also, I think we've done a really poor job as a games industry to just explain what our industry really is, and like how it works, and like explain the realities of stuff. So I do want to talk about that, and I want to be very honest about those things. So I always appreciate you guys having me and like having this opportunity to talk.
Yeah, of course.
Y'all are awesome. Yeah. Thanks for having me.
That is something that I'm so glad you said it, because it sounds so much better coming out of you, because your words are so much more eloquent and you're so much more better spoken than am I. But nice. No, it reminds me of like my early days in the theater and like community theater, and when you're like really passionate about it and you want to change the world and that kind of stuff. And a quote always stuck out to me, and it applies to theater, to video games, to all that stuff. But I believe in the magic of the theater and the nobility of the quest. And that's, like you said, that's so much better. Like you need to be healthy and happy. I mean, it's hard to have one and not the other.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, that's my doctor. But he was a good guy. He tricked me for months, because he kept asking, like, well, I was 14 or 15, and he was like, I'm retiring next year, and I'm just as old as you are. I'm like, wait, what? And like after 2 years of me trying to figure out what he meant, his birthday was on like February 29th, so he only had a birthday every 4 years. Oh. I was like, oh, come on, like that's a cheat. He's like, yeah, well, fair, but still true. Yeah, he was a funny guy. I liked him. Sometimes he said really smart things, and then sometimes he would keep me busy with tricks like that.
He was also just giving you illusions, Rami. That's all he was. He would be a good game developer, is basically what I'm trying to say. Be great at it. Yeah. Well, fuck. Where do we go? You kind of put a pretty bow on all that.
I did have one question from way back that I've been wanting to ask. When does an indie game stop being indie as far as a publisher goes? Meaning, sure, the studio is small, but if it's published by like Sony, is it still indie?
I don't know. Like and that's a very good question that a lot of people argue about a lot, and it's kind of tough to figure out, because indie never started as a thing that was like, when I started as an independent developer back in 2010, this was like second wave indie, right? You have like the wave of like Jonathan Blow and Phil Fish and like people like that, the Team Meat guys, and then there was second wave indie, and it was just kind of like a crew of like 40 to 100 people that would hang out at events, and then everything else was on forums, right? It was just forums. There's just like weird little communities of people that challenged each other. Like the community that my co-founder came out of was called the Poppenkast, and it was just like it was this little community where they would come back from like school because they were all 14-year-olds. They go like, "Hey, make a game about a dog chasing a car in like 3 hours. Deadline is 6 p.m." And then they would like compete, right? They would make games like that.
Yeah.
And that was indie. It was sort of like this weird counterculture. Making money was sort of like a dirty word. I was the most businessy guy in most of that community because I wanted to survive. That was not okay. That was like, let's not get the guy out of here. Like, we're talking about art, right?
Right.
And like that was sort of like the reality of that indie scene. And then from that counterculture, mostly people that were not happy with AAA grew indie as we know it now. And it's just kind of this weird. It's kind of this weird reality where like it's hard to say whether indie now is a business thing. Is it related to having a publisher, or is it related to like the amount of money that you make, or is it related to like the intent of your game? Like clearly something like
a buzzword.
Yeah,
it's more of like a colloquialism, rather than the actual definition. Like indie game does not necessarily mean like the literal definition, meaning like an independent studio. Like an indie game like can be published by somebody else in the vernacular of today.
Well, indie, like independent, which could kind of lead to like lack of extremely verbose infrastructure. So like being like somebody in my chat said something really interesting when we were talking about like when is an indie dev not an indie? Well, it's kind of like for companies back in the late 90s. When is a startup not a startup? You know, when is a garage company not a garage company? Like it's different stages of growth and integration into the main pipeline of whatever that development is. And the more kind of satellite you are to that core, the more indie you would be. But the problem is where originally that was like kind of like going back to the 100-hour thing from Rockstar, where originally that was kind of like a badge of honor. Like, oh, we're an indie dev.
Yeah.
So what's that immediately mean? Oh, it means don't expect much because they're smaller. It means they're probably going to have more care in the game. It means it's probably made by a smaller team. Like there used to be all these little like you saw indie and immediately this list in your mind would pop up next to it of adjectives that describe that product. And over time, it's like every few months, like somebody comes up with a little hammer and chisel and like knocks one of those away or shows an example of why that's not it. And now it's to the point where we have AAA companies at their main AAA events going, here's our indie studio show
section. Yeah.
And it's kind of like at that point, you've lost most of those descriptors. Like it may have been that you started with some of them, but when Papa Microsoft walks in and writes you a blank check and says, you know, finish this as fast as you can, at that point, like that's a different beast.
Yeah.
It's a different beast than when it was initiated. But again, like Rami, I'm sure you've actually been in these types of positions. Like you've kind of gambit from A to B. So
yep. I don't know. I always had to laugh because EA had the indie program, EA Originals, and me and my co-founder just looked at each other and went like, EA, it's indie game means something very different now. But EA is such a weird. When you think about it, these big companies having indie programs sounds really weird originally, but then when you think about it, it makes a lot of sense. Like it's kind of awesome actually that these bigger companies are now doing smaller projects because honestly, like they're probably going to die if they don't, right? Like again, like AAA is not in a great spot.
Yeah.
So, you know, spreading that risk and doing smaller projects also means they can do riskier projects. How you get amazing games. So I don't know, like it's this weird, it's again, like a weird pressure on the industry. The quality bar for what is a good indie game has gone up ridiculously, right? Like I made a game in like 58 hours in 2011 and then press wrote about it because it was an indie game. And then nowadays, like, I'm competing with what? Like, Fire and, like, The Gardens Between. Like,
Below.
you look at all these, like, Below, these beautiful Hellblades and was sacrificed. Like, wow. Like, the bar is incredibly high. And it's just like, I wonder what it'll do. Like, you know what I'm really hopeful for? I'm hopeful for like the counterculture to that. Like, I want to see the like weird trash games that people are gonna make that are just like, we made this in like 2 days and screw this quality bar. Like, I just wanted to make this. I just wanted to make this shit. I don't care whether you like it. I don't care whether you like just see it. I wanted to make it. I want to see. I want to see that.
Yeah.
Yeah, not like the people who are doing it for the money, right? Like, I want to see the 2010 indie spirit today, because the things they're competing against are so different. So I want to see what kind of weird stuff they make.
But
I do have to say though, talking about massive amounts of shitty games that are just there to make money. Like, have you seen Steam for the last 3 years?
Yeah.
Like it.
Well,
my god.
That's kind of what I was about to say. Is like the only people that could technically support or give a platform to create those shitty indie games is like a giant publisher. Because how else are you going to get them out there, right? Unless you're like, download our game right now by using this torrent. And that's the only way you can get it, is by like getting it on news groups or wherever you can just download stuff via torrent. So
yeah, I know. I spend a lot of time on itch.io. Itch has some pretty good stuff nowadays. So I like that. I like spending some time on there. But yeah, it's, I don't know, the amount of weird challenges we have right now as an industry, and like the desperation you get, because you know, we talk about microtransactions before, right? But you don't genuinely think there's any developer that wants to put those in there, right? No, there's no AAA that's making a $60 game that's like, yeah, you know what people are really gonna love? Some micros.
Right, those are all publisher driven. Yeah.
Yeah, and like sometimes not even publisher driven. Sometimes it's just financially driven. Like, the publisher won't make it.
Sure.
Right, like because people act like publishers are the enemy, and yeah, in some ways they are. But on the other hand, without them, we also wouldn't be here.
You don't exist, right? They're accountant driven.
Because people say like, well, publishers don't take risks and they're like evil. But like, think about it. Like, the Destiny is one of my favorite games ever. Without Activision going like, yeah, here's $500 million for your weird space zombie game in which you shoot aliens, and it's an MMORPG where you play with 3 players at most, and then 6 players in the biggest things, but only limited things, and there's some PvP stuff. It's also not Halo, even though we're known for Halo. It's just something entirely new. And we started it as like a third-person fantasy game, but it turns out we all suck at that, so we're doing a first-person shooter again in space. $500 million. And then Activision just kind of went like, yeah, fair. Here's $500 million. Like, that's like, oh, like the internet infrastructure for Destiny didn't exist when they signed, right? Like $500 million. It's just such a weird, like, a lot of publishers take a lot of risks and do a lot of like surprisingly positive things for our industry. There's just also absolutely parts of them that are damaging to our industry, and that you know, in very many cases push developers to do things that they might not want to do. But like, God, like what is the alternative? Like, there's no money. Where do we fund our game? Like, who funds our games? Tencent?
Yeah. Someone's
Maybe we should just all go to Tencent.
Yeah.
Kickstarter.
Yeah, let's Kickstarter everything.
Kickstarter is the most terrifying publisher you can own, because it's the audience.
Totally.
Like, you
yeah,
know, like
good example of that, our Bard's Tale 4 recently, Pathfinder, like, oh my god, dude.
Yeah.
The amount of expectations that people can build up for that kind of stuff, and then if they don't get what they were expecting, like, oh man. Woo!
You know, when you go and pitch to a publisher, one of the main pieces of advice I give developers is like, okay, you know what? When you go into this meeting, because I advise a lot of other devs, when you go into this meeting, what you want to do is you want to catch their attention with like a few sentences, but like, don't go too far into details, because their imagination will fill in the rest, and their imagination is going to be better than anything you can tell them, right? They're always going to imagine this game the best way they want. And then if you explain like, oh yeah, no, this game is first person and they were thinking third person, then you might lose the sale. So give them as little detail as possible. If somebody goes into a Kickstarter, I'm like, unless you're 100% sure and you can 100% communicate it, do not mention anything ever.
Yeah, the internet remembers, man.
If you say like, oh yeah, we're looking at multiplayer, that effectively means like there will be a 6v6 player online server-side run PvP experience and an MMO part to it. And then if you don't do that, people are going to be pissed off about it, which, again, as an industry, we're really bad at communicating a lot of these realities to our audiences.
Yeah.
Um,
Good case study
so
for all
that's not
that
even
is No Man's Sky. Just go.
Yep.
Look
Basically, a game designer pitching what he would have liked to see in his game across many different interviews.
Yeah.
And then when all of a sudden the stuff wasn't in the game, people got mad for some reason.
Yeah.
Yep.
That was rough.
Yeah, but that's the weird thing. It's like we're dreamers. Like that's kind of our weakness as game developers is we believe in this dream of making a game enough that we don't take the better job of just being a programmer for like a bank. Right? Vlambeer does really well, but I would probably still have a far more stable life if I just started working for like whatever the closest bank to me is.
Right.
Be a more stable life, be a good salary, have days that go from like 9 to 5. Like screw that. I want to make video games. Like fuck it. Like I'm a dreamer. Like I want to believe in that dream, so I'm gonna go do that. But it also means that a lot of us are not the people you should put in front of an interview camera because we're dreamers. And if we think we can do something, we're going to be like, oh, you know what's going to be really excited about this game? It's No Man's Sky. And then eventually it's not exactly that because technology, money, time, anything like push down on it and done.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just rough. Like for those of you who work at a bank, like I'm not saying working at a bank is bad. I'm saying I can't do it.
He's saying congratulations on your stable job is what he's saying. That's what he's getting at.
Yeah.
Ultimately.
Yeah, I felt really bad for Sean, honestly, through that entire thing. Sean Murray from No Man's Sky.
Yeah.
He genuinely like and seeing how much work they've done since to turn the game back around is incredible. Like the latest version of No Man's Sky, pretty good. It's really, really good.
Yeah. That was a cool story for sure. Everyone kind of came out of that saying like, hey, this game's actually it's not actual. I can't find anything in particular to really complain about right now. Give me a couple days. Which is like for the internet, everyone's like, huh, maybe that No Man's Sky has something going for it. Maybe there's some good in there. People aren't fucking going crazy right now. Yeah.
Yeah. It's sorry.
Go ahead, Zeke.
No, if you finish your thought if you had it, because I was gonna like ask you something.
I lost it because I was just exciting for you to say something.
Oh, you so nice. If you can quantify it as far as percentage wise, when you make a game these days, as opposed to when you started, how much of it percentage is money and I want to make a good game?
Well, I mean, we're in a really weird spot as a studio because financially, Vlambeer has done so well that we don't really have to worry too much about money for the foreseeable future. So at the moment, it's just I want to make some stuff, right? But I can tell you when we started on Nuclear Throne, when things were still a little different from that, it's about a 50-50, honestly. Like,
is it?
Because yeah, you're kind of like think of it this way: if I told you, hey Zeke, you can do a live stream for 3 years, right? You have to work every day. You can take Sundays off, maybe, depending on how things are. And at the end of those 3 years, we're going to flip a coin. And if it falls to head, we're going to pay you for those 3 years of work.
Right.
And the better your numbers are, the more often you can flip that coin. But it's still like, unless you get heads once, you're not going to get paid. So I can give you some targets. If you hit like 100,000, then you can flip a second coin, and then at 500,000 you can flip a third, and then at 1 million you can flip a fourth. But that's kind of the deal. So yeah, you kind of go like, okay, I need to make a game. At the end, I'm going to flip this coin. The better the game is, the more often I get to flip this coin. So what kind of game do I want to be working on for 3 years, right? Like what makes me excited? But then the other question is like, well, shit, like this is 3 years of my life in terms of money and income. So,
well,
how are we going to do this money-wise?
Well, you could look at it this way, like this, because I can look at streaming that way, or I can look at something else that I put hundreds and hundreds of hours into, and got paid $0. Like I've done, like from the ages of 15 to 34, I did community theater, like hundreds of hours of community theater, and I got $0, not 1 cent. And that's like after work every day, 3-hour rehearsals. And then like every weekend for 3 weekends, you're doing the show and that kind of stuff, and make $0. So was it worth it? Absolutely. I loved it. That kind of shit. So you can look at it in a different way as well.
Yeah. I think you look at it from both angles, honestly. Like I'd make games because, like I said earlier, like I just love this, right? I wouldn't trade it for the world. But on the other side, I would still like to be able to pay my artists and my musicians and everybody that's working on the game.
Sure.
So it's like it's a little bit of both, right? Like if people told me like you were never going to earn $1 making games, I would still make games after my day job. Like because I literally cannot not. Like that, I cannot not.
No, and that's like one of the biggest pieces of advice that I'm sure most streamers give. It's like, would you stream for free? Then you're in the right place.
Yeah.
If you're here just to try to make money, then you're probably not. Like, if I stopped making money tomorrow, I would still stream. Not as often, but I would still stream.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just it becomes part of. I mean, it probably was part of who you are, but it is part of who you are now for sure. There's this creative thing that you want to do, right? And it's fun and it's interesting and it gives you a sense of like of achievement or of like happiness or like community or whatever it is. Like it's just you would be here for no money whatsoever. But since it is also the thing that pays your rent, you create this balance that is a little bit of both. Like you would be here either way, but since I'm here and making money and trying to pay for a living and trying to pay my team, let's figure out how to balance that in the best way possible.
Sure, makes sense. I think you've stated that all games are a risk at one point or the other. Is there?
Before you complete that, are we going to take a break or not? Because I do have to go.
I would just say go to the restroom.
Okay.
Yeah. We'll take one eventually if we want to. If not, we'll just keep going.
Okay.
Is there any way, and you just said it's 50-50 for you, but is there such a thing as like a data-driven spreadsheet game that will more likely than not be a success? Is there some way to do that, to quantify what a game is in its essence? And if so, like what's a good example of that exists?
I mean, every free-to-play game ever.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, no, like a lot of free-to-play games, especially the bigger ones, are just 100% data sets. It's just data. They figure it out. They run the data. They do this thing called a soft launch, where the game releases only in limited markets, and then they check if their expectations match the numbers, and then they will do things as like flip which button is like if there's OK and cancel, and OK is on the left and cancel is on the right. They'll flip them around and see if the number goes up.
I fucking hate when they do that shit.
Yeah, they turn the OK. They turn the OK button red and the cancel button blue, and then you hit cancel or something. Like it's just 100% data, and for me as a creative, I don't like it, but
sure.
My God, there's a lot of that. But funnily enough, I think most games have a lot of spreadsheets to them. Like
eventually someone has to step in and be like, all right, how the fuck is this going to get funded and is this going to make money, right? But yeah.
So it's not like most games have some sort of spreadsheet somewhere that's just look for that. Nuclear Throne had that at some point, where we're just looking at like drop-off rates, like where are people quitting. And there was this amazing moment when we were just doing Nuclear Throne, where the community was kind of gotten big enough, right? And we hadn't done analytics. We had no data on how people were playing and where people were quitting. We just had the forums. And on the forums, people were saying like, oh, come on, like, First World is so simple, and I have to, every time I die, I have to play it. Like, can you make it harder? Because it's just not challenging. It's boring. I hate World 1. So we're like, okay, you know what? Everybody on the forum is saying the same thing. We're just going to make World 1 harder. So we made World 1. We took Nuclear Throne, made World 1 harder. And then a few weeks later, people were like, oh, yeah, you made it harder, but it's still so simple. Like, World 2, like, it's so much better. Like, what? Can you make World 1 harder? And we were looking at the forums, and everybody was saying the same thing. So we made World 1 harder again. And then eventually, at some point, we realized that nobody knew was joining our forum anymore. It was just nobody knew. It was just the same 150 people were in the Nuclear Throne forums saying that World 1 was too easy. So we implemented analytics. We realized that every new player that hit the game just got wrecked in World 1
and just never
and then just left. They never even got to the forums because they were just like, this game is shit.
Yeah, and
just left. Yeah, we believe in the value of looking at data for sure.
What?
Just, don't the idea that like user feedback is the only valuable source of feedback is super wrong. If everybody, how we knew Nuclear Throne was well balanced? Because people were equally complaining about every character. Everybody said their character was shit. Everybody was like, all the other characters are better. My character is broken.
That's the end of it, I guess.
Every character had that. We were like, we're good. We got it.
Yeah, well, that's kind of like how you know you have a good compromise is if both sides are unhappy with it.
Right. Yeah. Fuck. That's kind of fucked up. What like data set would you say is like the most important in gaming? Like, is it retention? Is it progression? Is it like?
I mean, I guess it depends on the game you're making. If you're making an MMO,
type,
then retention. Yeah, the retention is obviously going to be huge. But if you're making Firewatch, then completion is probably big. I don't know. I think for me, the data that tends to be most important for Vlambeer games is just the playtime people put in. Like, I like to know how long they play per session. That's the one I always look at. Because if Nuclear Throne, basically, kind of the hope was that we would get people to play 2 or 3 rounds, then get frustrated and leave. Right? Which comes down to about an hour and a half. So if people were playing for like 6 hours, then that's probably a problem because we made the game too addictive and people are like taking a lot out of their day that they probably shouldn't. Well, if they're playing for 5 minutes, then clearly they're not even finishing a run, or they just kind of suck at the game and didn't try again, even though we want people to go one more game. So it's for me, playtime is one that I look at a lot. That's a Vlambeer thing. But
what is maybe I'm being way too cynical here, but what does too addictive do for you that's bad?
So have you ever sat down and been like, man, people are playing this game too long. Clearly too much fun. Let's add in some shitty mechanics.
Right. That's kind of what I'm getting at. It's like, what do you balance at when it's too addictive? Or what do you add in?
For us, we want our games to be relatively healthy for the user. That's just the thing. That's just the thing we want. And if somebody wants to play 6 hours, like, go for it. We're not going to tell you can't, right? But we don't want the core game loop of the game to basically encourage you to do that. Because God, we're so like, listen, this industry is really, can I curse? I guess I can curse. Right?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
This industry is really fucking good at steering behavior. Like, we're incredible at it. Like, we can give you a situation and we can guarantee that 99% of people will do the exact same thing. Right? Like, it's just this industry has gotten so good at it, and it's part of why free to play is so scary, because through all that research, we've gotten incredibly good at this. Like, we can steer people's behaviors from like the way they'll look, where they'll walk, the amount of times they'll spend in a room. Like, we're really good, but that means we basically have the power to say like, well, you will feel miserable about your life unless you're playing our video game. Like, we can kind of do that. We can create patterns in your brain that make you go like, well, shit, I need to check on my game. Like, I need to check on my cows in Stardew Valley. I need to check on my
The guilt of not doing so, yeah.
Yeah, my prime engrams. I need to we know how to do that. And at Vlambeer, we kind of want to sit in the middle. Like we want people to enjoy our game, but on the other hand, we don't want them to feel like they have to play a game of Nuclear Throne, right? We don't want them to feel like the daily mode in Nuclear Throne is one game a day. There's no other way to engage with it. There's no other way to interact with it. You just play the one round, and then at the end of the day, there's a scoreboard. And honestly, even that, for us, it was kind of a lot. We felt kind of weird about that. We actually originally looked at a weekly mode where you could do one game a week instead of a daily. And then everybody just wanted dailies, so we did dailies, and we kept the weeklies.
Sure.
Which is probably worse. Because now we have two. We have a daily and a weekly. But yeah, it's that kind of like we're as a game developer, we're so good at controlling behavior that for us as a studio, it was one of our sort of like conscious choices to try and steer that behavior in healthy ways.
So what you're saying is Vlambeer's never going to make an MMO.
If we are, we're going to try and avoid that, and it'll be really interesting.
You're going to be the most unsuccessful MMO ever. That's Vlambeer's goal.
Sold 40 copies, and everybody played for 6 seconds.
Yeah. Our players play about 4 or 5 hours a week. We're doing pretty good. We're doing good.
Honestly, though, I would wonder if that could be good. Oh, no.
Like an MMO with the least amount of time played per week compared to every other
like
MMO?
you play like 2 hours a week. That's it.
Well, here's that already exists because people make where you can only advance for 2 hours basically of game time per week unless you pay more money, and then you can advance that cap. That structure already exists out there in many Korean MMOs. So
yeah,
someone already beat you to it and monetized it. You can't beat that. That's just how it goes.
Microtransactions.
Yeah. The free to play.
Oh, video games.
Video games for sure.
Jumping completely to a different topic. I think the most important thing that I've wanted to ask, and I'm sure it's been on the mind of many people who know you. What is your mom playing these days?
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Did she ever start God of War? I never
She finished God of War.
She finished it.
My mom just wrecked God of War, and it was great. She really liked the game. She thought Atreus was a whiny little asshole, which fair enough. I guess she raised 3 kids of her own, so she has experience. She played it on an easy. And she had a really good challenge there. Like she enjoyed it a lot. She loved the characters. She loved the world. She wanted to be an archaeologist when she was younger, and then ended up not doing that. But like seeing this whole mythology was really good. She actually liked it so much that after finishing the game, she took a trip to Norway to go check out some of the Norwegian sites and like mythology.
Huh.
So yeah, she really liked it. And then afterwards, I really, for every game, I tried to like think of like a lesson for mom to learn. And for the next game, I wanted her to find a platformer to learn some like 3D positioning beyond like stand in this place.
I'm going to try and guess.
Uh-oh.
Okay, go.
It's going to say...
It's a what?
It's an older game. Okay.
It's slightly older.
Oh. Okay. I'll go with Super Meat Boy. Yeah.
No. No. As a side note, I wanted to do 3D.
Oh, okay.
And it's a PlayStation.
Crash Bandicoot.
Close.
That's not a platformer.
I don't know if it's PlayStation. I don't.
Somebody in chat already guessed it.
Portal?
Nope. No. Portal would make my mom throw up, I think.
I can see that.
Yeah, there's a bunch of people in chat who are guessing it. Shall I just go?
Go ahead. Yeah, go.
Yeah.
It's Ratchet. Ratchet and Clank.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Okay.
Yeah, it's sort of accessible. It's fun. And you know what happened? My mom was just like, after like something like God of War, I don't think Ratchet and Clank is really doing it for me. She just came from like big, strong man having feelings about kids to like mouse and robot friends.
Right.
So she played a bit of it and then just kind of bounced off. And we said, you know what, we'll try it again in the future. So I asked my mom if she wanted to play anything, and my mom had 2 games she wants to play.
Uh-oh, she's doing her own research now.
Yeah, she wants to play Nier Automata.
Huh.
Which I went, that's a little beyond where we are right now. Let's
You said that so fast. I had no idea what you said. Nier Automata.
Nier Automata. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like,
damn.
what an incredible game to choose. Probably one of my favorite games ever. But also like, no.
High praise.
Like, let's.
Yeah.
And then the other one.
No.
Yeah. And then the other game she wants to play is Destiny 2. So my mom is a warlock.
Nice.
And she is level 7. She is near 100 light right now.
Now, is she
and
playing by herself? Because how does...
So I help her out every now and then. But,
Yeah.
I wish I could show you this video. Destiny does a really good job of onboarding. There's not a lot of complicated stuff until like the second world.
Yeah.
And on Titan, there's this one double jump that she had to do, and she just couldn't do it. And there's like a 20-minute video of me doing the selfie emote with my mom just jumping off a cliff in the background. And it's just, she would die, she would respawn, I would do the selfie emote, and you would just see her like fall off the cliff again. We were on voice chat, and we were just crying with laughter.
I have no idea what that's like at all.
But yeah, so it's she's now on Titan. She's starting to build the resistance against Gaul, and yeah, I don't know how long we're going to keep playing that, because eventually I want her to play other games, and Destiny is effectively an infinite like game.
Yeah, you might have created a monster now. Your research project is just going to get enveloped in Destiny 2.
I look forward to doing the first raid with mom. Like, it's going to take months before she's good enough for that, because for now she has a hard time like aiming and walking at the same time. But she can throw a good super. Like, I was stuck. Yeah, the sword one, Dawnblade. She did some really good downblading on one of the missions, and it was fun because sometimes I visit her, and so obviously I'm not logged in. I had to like coach her through a really big fight in which was in darkness, so there was no revives. It was like, no, step forward, take a step forward, no, go behind the crate, no, yeah. Right, you got it. Yeah, okay, all right, take a step forward, yeah. Oh no, you're getting hit. Take a step back, and she's just like kind of stressing out and like trying to figure it out. But she really likes playing that way. She just likes the like doing a thing and like getting better at it, but also like the fact that I'm like I'm trying to be very patient with everything.
Yeah.
So it's just really fun. It's just really fun sitting there and just being like, okay, so where do you think you have to go? She's like, I have no idea. Like, what does the arrow in the top left say? She's like, oh, yeah, I have to go to the left. I'm like, there's nothing there. I'm like, have you looked up and down? She's like, no. Oh yeah, there's something up here. Can I jump there? I'm like, you should try. And like, playing like that, it's actually really fun. Just like a very like, be like patient and like see her like slowly getting to understand. And like now she looks up every time, and she walks off of cliffs every now and then. But like seeing those behaviors appear, and like I had to be like that when I was a kid. That's how I must have learned to play video games, right? Like I don't remember, because for now I've grown up with games. So to me, walking forward and backwards and like jumping and shooting and aiming at the same time, like looking at my grenades and my super and like making the risk assessment of this group is a lot of like, that's just second nature for me. But like watching somebody learn how to do dual stick, It's kind of incredible, honestly. It's super fun.
Yeah. Cool. Have you played any games with your firstborn yet? Have you introduced him to stuff yet? I think we've talked about that. Maybe you haven't.
No, my son is a year. He's 18 months right now. He has barely even looked at a screen yet at this point. So there's a lot of
Good
parents.
on you. Most parents would be like, take this iPad. Stop talking.
Yeah. Set the kid up, they'll hand him a cell phone with a game on it. We don't do that.
Yeah.
My kid won't be on the screen until probably 3 or 4. And the first game my kid will be playing, I bought a still boxed Nintendo Entertainment System Classic console. And if he wants to play any other game, he'll beat the original Mario.
Nice.
So yeah,
Wow,
that's how that works.
That's challenging.
I beat that game when I was like 15, so that's gonna be a while.
It's gonna be challenging.
Yeah, it'll be tough. I'm gonna play it with him though. So
Yeah.
it'll be good.
It'll be good.
And most importantly, I am not gonna raise my child thinking that these mobile bullshit, get as much money, flashy colors, loud sounds. You're rewarded for being a person. He's not doing any of those. I feel like that's going to ruin an entire generation of gamers, to be honest.
The Roblox generation.
What a real game is. Yeah. It's going to be a total mess. This is a conversation for another show, though, because I could talk about this for hours.
Yeah. 10 years from now, games are going to be weird.
It's all going to be.
There's mobile games,
games as service.
Specifically aimed towards children. And like I've checked a few of them out just to see like there's games that you can get and it says on the game like for ages 1 to 3. And you look at these games and they're just like explosions of colors and rewarding for everything and touch a circle and you're the best human that's ever been created. It's insane. Like it makes me wonder what these kids like if they're going to grow up on these games and then get to like an actual like an RPG or something and they're just going to be like, I don't get it. I died. It's not what?
Yeah.
I don't. This isn't fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now I want to make a game with that age rating that's just like the most hardcore stuff.
Just
right?
Super Meat Boy on crack for 3-year-olds.
Yeah, just for 3-year-olds with like colors and like stuff like that, but also like just the most hardcore stuff.
Please do it.
Yeah. Instead of Baby Einstein, there's like Baby Speedrunner.
Yeah.
Baby's first Dark Souls to be the name of the game.
It just teaches you to circle strafe around something and hold a button to put your shield up. Yeah. It's great. It's great. It's a great plan. A lot of money in that.
You're going to see like an epidemic of babies. Oh.
Yeah, we're just giving Rami bad ideas.
Bad financial ideas, like an MMO that you can play 2 weeks a day, a week, 2 hours a week, and also like super diehard. What if I combined the two? It's like an MMO for 1 to 3-year-olds that's super hardcore, but you can only play for an hour a week.
Yep.
Now that's gonna piss off some kids.
With no microtransactions.
Oh, even better. But by doing well at the game and being invested in it and actually like trying to do better, you can increase your game time. Like the better you do, the longer you play.
And what? That you can run tutorials for more game time? Is that what you're saying?
Only if you buy the enhanced edition and pre-order it.
It's eventually going to happen. We're going to have Rami create the worst game ever, and it's going to be called Drop Frames. That's going to be the plan. We're working on it. It's still working on it. It'll be good. All the worst ideas in gaming in one game. That's the tagline for the box. Here. Yeah, that'd be good. We haven't talked too much about actually games that we've played in the past week, but I think we're all still playing pretty much the same thing. So, still playing Pathfinder.
I put some hours into a great game. I think it's pretty new. I'm actually gonna be playing it right after the show too. Neverwinter Nights 2.
Oh shit!
Is there a remastered version? Or are you playing the original one, like the original?
Like complete edition from God knows when back in the day.
Is it run at 1440 or whatever res your native res is? Yeah,
fantastic. Like not only has it been like super cleaned up from back in the day, but it's totally been brought into the current gen. Like all the camera issues in the original release are fixed. All the expansions are in one nice little package now on GOG. It's great, man. It's great. I did it as a joke because I had some quick downtime because I couldn't play Pathfinder because it was too bugged at the time. And I ended up playing for like 3 or 4 hours. And then I got an hour after the show today, and I was like, let's dip in again. And it's crazy to return to it after being gone from 10 plus years. Because it's still, to this day, like one of the best RPGs of its time. And pretty much ever in terms of like some of the content. So it's really cool to check it out again.
Yeah, I'm trying to. When did you? I just want to see what that game looks like because it's been forever.
When did we do it? It was at the end of a stream. I want to say 2 days ago, 3 days ago. I think I started with another game, so it'd be maybe kind of hard to find. Definitely played it for a few hours though, and it was at the end of one of the streams. Oh my god! Also, I don't know if anyone has that clip. They have. I was just messing around making a character, and they have possibly one of the best voice packs I have ever seen. It is basically a combination of a bard and James Brown.
What?
And I sit there for like 5 minutes clicking him, like, because every time you click it, it says what you're gonna do. So you literally, like, every time you attack with this guy, it goes, attack! I say attack! And like he has like this little singing thing for every single thing he does. I don't know when they put it in. Amazing.
Why do I remember?
Amazing.
For some reason, I know exactly what you're saying, and it might be from when I played Neverwinter Nights a long ass time ago.
Somebody heal me! I need a health pot. Like it's so good. It's so every single one of his like stylized and at the top of his lungs. Oh my god, so good.
I'm having the hardest time trying to find it, so it'll just remain not view. I'll have to catch your stream maybe later today.
High-strung evangelist, yeah.
Weird. And then it looks like you went back to Bard's Tale. I think Zeke was playing some Bard's Tale for the first time this week as well. What?
Nothing.
Okay.
No, he co-said evangelist.
The guy in chat, I think. But yeah, no, a little bit of Bard's Tale. I waited way too long to return to Bard's Tale. That game is so good. And In Exile has now put 3 patches into it, cleaning up most of the major issues I had with it. The only thing it's still kind of sorely missing is inventory sorting, but that is coming in a few patches down the road. They've since adjusted the difficulty. They've removed a lot of things that were problematic, added in a bunch of features and functionality. Like, yeah, very, very pleased with Bard's Tale 4 now. When Bard's Tale 4 came out, less than a month ago, I basically said, like, you need to wait on this. This is too buggy, like not even FOV slider. You gotta wait on this. And now here we are, like less than a month later, and I can say, go buy this game. Like Bard's Tale 4, it is totally playable now. Performance increases are in there. All the hotfix bugs are all the hotkey bugs are out. Like it's nice. It's really nice.
I'm super glad that I waited because I haven't spent like a whole bunch of time. I've got according to Steam, I have about 7 hours in it, and I haven't encountered any bugs whatsoever. Like there's some like polished shit, like clipping through like armor, like the arm goes through the armor and stuff like that. Like that's minor bullshit. Everything else is solid. The gameplay is fun. The dialogue, the voice acting, and shining star, the music. It is fucking fantastic. The music is so good, and people are saying like, you haven't even got out of the first place yet, man. You got to get to the next like thing, and it just keeps getting better and better. I love the puzzles. I love as much as like backtracking and going back and doing shit that you or going to places you've already been. Kind of, it kind of sucks, but it's fun in this because you see like, oh, that's a thing. There's a little thing up there. And I bet if I get a thing, I can go up there and see what's up there. Or there's a little painting or something graffiti on the wall. I wonder what the fuck that does. I bet they'll tell me later. God damn it. I do wish you can mark places on your map though. Like be like, this is where I saw it.
Yep.
But
custom routes on the map. Yeah.
But that's part of the joy of it is hunting around for shit, and maybe that's the reason why they did that. And of course, you put this part on where I was very first starting, and I got into this fight, and they're just gonna destroy me. They're just gonna fuck me up.
That's fine.
Surrendering. That's exactly what I did. Just surrendered.
But hey, Zeke, just to let you know, dude, and I'm gonna let you know this now because I started doing this midway through my playthrough, and I looked back, really regretted not doing it at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Open up a notepad file, save as Bard's Tale 4 notes, And anytime stuff like that comes up, starts taking it down. Anytime you get to an elven shrine, just write the location and what the elven shrine is. Like there's so many things in this game. Like my notepad is like 3 pages long now of just notes of like, go back and do this. This isn't done yet. Found this sign. Don't know what it means. It helps so much. Because you'll get like that thing you talked about earlier. I'm not going to spoil it for you, but you'll get to a part where you'll be looking at something and be like, oh shit, that's what all that is. Where did I see those? And then instead of spending like an hour like I did going back and trying to find them, you could just look at a note thing and be like, oh, you know, so yeah, very much. And it only gets worse. As you keep playing through the game, like lots of that stuff starts popping up. So yeah,
there's a lot of time that I've spent trying to figure out shit that I main story wise can't figure out yet or not supposed to complete yet. So I'm sitting there looking at this because I looked at those elven shrines and I was like, they want something from me. See, I went through my inventory, just like kind of staring at it, like, okay, maybe that. And it's like that. Nah, and it, like seriously, like 20 minutes of just going, I don't know how to figure this out. And then chat was, I mean, you kind of like, I kind of try to avoid it, but you read chat and they're like, you can't do this yet. And it's like, you know what? Normally I would not like that, but I'm like, thank you. I'm glad I knew that I didn't stare at this fucking thing for, you know, however long and feel stupid because I couldn't figure it out. It's like, no, you don't have the right thing. You don't have the right item or whatever. So, but there's a lot of that for sure in this game.
Huh.
Which I really dig.
Was that Dishonored? Like Dishonored 1 or 2? They had like this one puzzle that just skipped an entire level, but it felt impossible in many ways. You just look at the puzzle, you're like, there's no way I can solve this puzzle. But if you kept trying to figure it out, like you could solve it. It was not an impossible puzzle. But it just skipped an entire level, and I was like, "This is some good game design."
Yeah, I prefer that. Like, I hate when I run into something that I have to come back later. Like I think that's one of my biggest pet peeves in games because I very rarely, if ever, will ever go back to that shit, unless there's like crazy magical items behind it. Go ahead, Co.
Similarly, in Dishonored 2, there's actually a level with a house that is like a giant puzzle that has movable walls and stuff. And there's ways you can do that level to basically completely bypass it if you're kind of smart enough and stage things properly. Or if you just do it like how the story kind of intends you to do, then it kind of like sets off this entirely different chain of events.
Sounds like Dishonored.
I love that stuff.
Yeah. Well, cool. How is this game still like 70 billion hours long, like every other game that's come out in the past month? How long is Bard's Tale? Isn't it pretty lengthy?
It's a turn-based game, so it's gonna, for me, it's probably gonna be a little bit, but it seems like it's got some girth to it.
Yeah.
I've been told I'm 70 to 80% through the game. My playthrough so far has been 46 hours.
That's not too bad. It's not the worst. Yeah.
My mom was so happy with God of War because I was like, yeah, this game will take you about like 15 to 20 hours. And she's like, oh, so this one is not 140? And I'm like, no, this one is not. Because before that, she played like what?
Persona.
Final Fantasy 50, Dragon Age Inquisition, and Persona. So she just thought every video game like 90 plus hours.
Those are some long games for sure.
Yep.
I can't because I'll just spoil the fuck out of the game for Assassin's Creed, but I'm basically done. That game like splits up the story into these 4 main quests, kind of. So I finished 2 of the main quests, and now I have to hunt all of one thing to finish the other part. I don't know if I'm going to because it's like 18 things that you have to go and kill, and there's side quests for all of it. So I don't know. But the main portion of that is pretty good. They do a lot of stuff with like the current day Animus bullshit towards the end of the game, which I was interested in for once.
I'm excited for that. I mean, the don't give me any spoilers here, but like the Egyptian character at the end of Origins. I mean, she's Egyptian. I'm Egyptian, so I was like, I'm in. Like, I don't care. Like, I'm excited for what happens, unless she like immediately gets killed or something, in which case I'll make a fight with some people.
Right.
But
right.
Yeah, I'm excited to see where that game goes with the current day stuff.
Yeah, it takes time, but it definitely goes places, which is cool. I'm actually kind of interested. For all the stupid reasons, the DLCs that they have putting out for that seem to be the most interesting parts of that game expanded. So if you look at the DLCs, you can kind of talk about what I'm saying. But that kind of also bums me out that it's DLC that I have to play later. But yeah.
You know, we were talking about this earlier, but the weird thing is when you think of games right now, like I don't think most big studios are trying to put out games. They're trying to put out platforms for content.
I can see that with Assassin's Creed for sure.
Yeah, it's you make a game that's good enough for people to play and love, and then you just build content on top of that, or you make like an online multiplayer game and then build content on top of that.
Yeah,
it's actually really interesting. I'd never thought about that.
Yeah, Co, what were you gonna say?
No, addressed.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's cool. They do the same thing that they did in Origins, where like the myths pop up, and kind of like in Origins where there's like pharaohs and whatnot that you're fighting. They do some of that stuff towards the end of this one that it's cool. I was into. So,
oh yeah, Forza Horizon is out. Did anybody play that?
I wanted to. We're not really big driving fans.
Yeah, that's right.
Between the three of us, so I want to, but it's also the case of like streaming driving games is also tough. They just typically don't do well on Twitch, so I haven't really gotten into it. Friend of the show and fellow streamer Giant Waffle like went off the deep end and bought like a full-on racing driving kit with like a fucking crazy wheel with throttle, and it shakes, and he's got the chair that moves and all this crazy shit, and like 3 monitors, and he's jumping into the deep end playing like dirt with all this crazy shit. I saw that and I kind of want to do it, but it's like he put like $1,200 into all this shit. I'm like, that's a lot of work. It's a lot of work to set all that up, but it looks real cool, without a doubt.
Yeah. I mean, I think I mentioned I like racing games, but I like when they do something interesting with it. Like Onrush was really good, but it died. Yeah, I think. But now Forza Horizon is one of those. It's the kind of racing game that I might like, because I'm not like a great driving fan. I'm not a great racing fan either. But I kind of like just driving around the place. It's kind of
something calming about that. Like I've booted up Forza at nighttime and messed around for 30 minutes, just like I'm going to drive from point A to B and see how that goes. Yeah. It feels fun. It feels fine. I don't have any interest in like jumping in their whatever special car race thing where you race against a plane that is always going to barely lose to you, et cetera, et cetera. Like that type of stuff is whatever. I get why it exists, but it's just not something I'm super about. I think most complaints I heard about Forza was actually the winter season. It's just a monstrosity to die in or to drive in. Like it's.
I was just about to say, this game got so dead. Like I didn't know we could die in Forza.
Well, I mean, with how crazy you are on the road when it's winter outside, I think it's implied that you wouldn't survive this.
Die-hard permadeath racing game.
Buy the game. There you go. All right, Rami, that's your third new game is a one life racing game. If you crash, it's over. And you can't.
And then you have to buy a new copy of the game.
Yep. The game deletes itself from your hard drive, and the CD key.
There is microtransactions for cars, but they cost the same amount of money as the actual car in real life.
Yes. Yeah. That's it. That's it. Look, if you get one whale to buy that car, you're set. The game's probably...
Isn't that what's happening with Star Citizen right now, though? They're like selling ships for like.
It's a sensitive conversation on the show because we have a bunch of people that have watched the show that play Star Citizen, and we know next to nothing except for the people that, like you just said, buy like a $30,000 ship, and they just get really crazy.
Here's the thing. I'm not like, my opinion completely irrelevant here, but like, what a story. Like, what a story that this is like a real thing. I love that this is happening, even though I don't understand the word.
It's FOIP. It's face over IP that they put in like yesterday or the day before that it's working. Someone was like in a ship, and up in the top right-hand corner on one of the little things on the ship, on little monitors, it says like, you have an incoming call. The player like goes and clicks it, and it's a player that I think was in the back of his ship that was requesting to get up into his ship to like open the hangar bay. So it's a video call of his avatar talking to the player saying, hey, open the back of your ship. I'm trying to get inside.
The scope of this game, If this all pans out, it's some Eve level stuff. Like there's got to be movies about some of the like messed up things in this game.
Did you see it? Did you watch the Squadron 42 trailer or whatever?
Yeah, that's a lot of money to spend.
Yeah, the actors in that are just like fucking staggering.
Yep.
Dude, Arrival's a movie.
It is a movie. It is a movie.
Yeah. Oh my lord.
I'm right there with you, man. I watched that. I was like, so is this a game or is this a full length motion picture?
At this point, it's like, okay. So I'll buy your Squadron 42. So how much is the microtransaction to just bypass all the gameplay and just watch the cutscenes?
Right. Give me just the cutscenes. How much does that cost?
Movie. I understand there's a game, but what's the movie cost? Like, can we just?
Yeah.
Oh my lord.
Yeah.
I have no idea. Like I genuinely do not know about this game. I have no idea. I don't. My senses say this project is in like big trouble, but like then other people say it's not, and then other people say clearly it is, and there's all this like talk around it, and like I genuinely don't know. I have no idea.
My
But
thoughts.
the story is great.
Yeah, my thoughts on Star Citizen is I am unbelievably interested to see what happens to that game, but I have zero interest in playing it. Like I just want to see what that game does whenever it actually comes out, if ever it actually comes out.
I gotta admit, dude, I am super excited to play this game. I cannot wait to play a completed version of Star Citizen.
Yeah.
Like I think it would be the best space game ever. Like in fact, it's almost getting to the point where it'd be hard not to be.
Right.
Like if it actually. So I mean, I can't wait to hopefully one day in the late 2030s play this game when it's finished. I hope it's amazing and it's incredible.
Yeah.
But man,
Whew. Like, yeah,
well,
it's gonna be a ride to get there.
It is.
What are gonna? I mean,
Maybe Rowan
something
can
that
play
takes
it.
that long. Something that takes that long to make seems like it's gonna run up against like technical issues in that where they started and where they finish, as far as like graphically, audio, whatever, is going to be like, like advances will have been made.
Well, it's funny that you say that. Is if you watch, they did like a 30-minute video about Star Citizen, its development for the Squadron 42 thing. And one of the first things they talk about as a milestone of their development is having to update their infrastructure to handle the sheer scope of their game. So what I'm guessing we'll probably see in the rest of Star Citizen's development is major milestones in the development, trying to keep the product up with like all
Current
the
standards,
changes.
yeah.
So I mean, you're right though.
Yeah.
And the worst part is every year that goes by and every major development they have to do this in is just wasted resources if they could have gotten the project done like in another degree in a different time. So it's interesting, man. The longer it takes, not only the more work to put the product together, but the more work of just keeping it caught up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
I was laughing.
Because
Go ahead, Rami.
it makes you wonder, like obviously we think of like the capture for like the actors to be super good right now, but like in like 3 years it's probably a little older, right? Like 5
Totally.
years it'll be old. Like everything in that game feels like the story of Final Fantasy 15 again, right? Like because that game was in development as like Final Fantasy 13 originally, and took like a decade, got stuck. And they basically had to remake the game in 2 years. And I'm kind of wondering if this is like the most ridiculously public R&D for a video game I've ever seen, where they're just like trying a bunch of stuff, and the stuff that works they're going to do, and then when they're ready to make the game, they're going to start and make the game.
Yeah.
Because that's basically what Ko was saying. Like if they're redoing the infrastructure, they're basically starting over.
Totally.
Like, that's like they still have the assets, but like they're building a new infrastructure. This is like Destiny 2 Forsaken level, like redoing stuff. Like Forsaken is not Destiny 2. Like that's genuinely Destiny 3. Like they redid the entire economy, the gameplay, the time to kill. They redid everything in that game. This is that, but more. They're like redoing everything.
Yeah.
Which
Oh,
I have no idea.
what's kind of scary with Destiny 2, and this is something that I had a pretty long discussion with a pretty diehard Destiny fan about this, is the fact that the developers and the people that come up with the ideas at Destiny wanted Destiny 2 to be something, and they made it that way. And then the player base hated it so much that they basically said, "What do you want? Fine, we'll do that." and then they like spent, you know, like months doing it and basically sold them in a way, like all the stuff that should have been there at the beginning, according to a lot of them. And it's really interesting because like that throws this whole thing into question where it's like, well, I mean, if it's the players getting what they want, and the players doing it, like, what does that mean for all the people that are working on it and that decided to go against it originally, and then in some cases like actively removed these components to put in this new stuff that everyone hated? And it's like, is this what's going to happen for each of the Destinies? And now a lot of people are like, yeah, Destiny's great now. Destiny's great. Destiny's great because they took out all the stuff that they decided to do.
Yeah.
Mm. I don't know. Like,
Even
you know what?
It was like, we're scared as hell over this. Like this bodes super poorly for this.
Yeah.
I think the interesting thing about Destiny is I still believe everything that they want a Destiny 2 to be. I think the interesting thing I've learned watching Destiny 2 is that if you have something that is building on something, you have to be aware of what that community, why that community plays. And I think in many ways the vitriol around Destiny 1 informed Bungie of the wrong problems, right? Because Destiny 1, when it was over, they were getting a lot of complaints about like the grind, and they were getting a lot of complaints about like the lore, and so just kind of took all of that out. And then they made Destiny 2, and then it turned out that was not what people were actually complaining about. They were complaining about like way more focused issues. So it's kind of an interesting one. I think that with Forsaken, the game is in a really good place, and the people that I know that work on the game, they seem to be excited about the reception, from what I can tell. And it's been nice going to the Destiny Reddit and just you know, it's not a continuous crash fire.
It's been nice when it pops up in our chats, man, because it's like Destiny 2 is a pretty good game.
Yeah,
I don't think that sentence has ever been said before. That it's been nice going to the Destiny Reddit. Like that might be the first time that sentence has been said.
I think what happened is all the people that were mad there went to the World of Warcraft Reddit, and now they live over there. And now they're saying that game's bad. So they just go from place to place. It is what it is. Yeah.
I mean, Destiny 2 a really solid game.
Warframe is better,
but it doesn't quite like I think nailed down the model that they're quite looking for, especially from the long-term players. But yeah,
we'll see.
I wouldn't know.
No, I think that's true. I think the in a really weird like intermittent state. Is that the word? Like it's just kind of stuck in like, okay, so people want, we don't know what people don't want. Destiny 2, the original launch, was very good and laid some very good foundations, but it didn't have lasting power. So now they've put in the lasting power, and now they're going to figure out how to make money while also keeping this up.
Right.
Which I think the new season pass is an interesting thing there.
And well, Rami, what do you think this kind of thing bodes for Destiny 3, which we all know is part of the 10-year? So, like, do you think that Destiny 3 could actually be like a huge success because they've now reoriented their perspective and we need to give the players what they want? Or do you think that we're going to see this again, another departure from what they've done in the past in an attempt to kind of bring in new mechanics?
Well, that's the thing. I think the thing that went wrong with Destiny 1 to Destiny 2, and it's, wrong between quotation marks because, it ended up good in the end. I think the main thing that went wrong is that they forgot that the type of game they're making is not a Halo game, right? Like Destiny is a game that is very, like in Halo, they could experiment all they wanted. In Halo 2, they went, well, dual wield, that's going to be great. And they just tried it. And like, was it great? I thought it was great. Not everybody did. But the thing with Destiny 3 that I think is that the main issue that went wrong with Destiny 2 was just staying power. There was not enough stuff to do, and the stuff that was there, you got too fast. And Forsaken basically fixed all of that. Like I've been playing for weeks, and I'm barely halfway through getting my light level up to 600. So I think now that they know that, and they know what the core of the game is, there's a chance that they will get it right with 3 right out of the bat, right?
Sure.
And And I think that they can do that without doing the, well, let's just give the players what they want. I think they can hit a really good balance. I'm a huge Bungie fan, so I trust those developers to do good work. But obviously, like, game development stays really hard, and it's hard to predict what people want, even with the amount of feedback. Like, it's tough. Like, guessing what somebody will like is really tough. Like, if we agree that I'll be back in like 50 episodes, and we ask the chat right now to say like, hey, what's the most popular game in like what, in episode 200?
A year from now,
or like 250. Yeah. Like, you just ask people now, like, what will be the genre of the game that'll be the big deal a year from now?
Yeah.
Like,
it's impossible. The best way to say that's impossible, Fortnite came out and then it pivoted to become the biggest game in the world.
In a free
one.
Yeah.
In a free it went from relative sleeper mobile game to world phenomenon in a patch.
Yep.
Do you remember when that game was announced by Cliff Bleszinski?
Yeah. It's fucking weird.
That was good.
It's a fucking weird thing.
I loved it.
To take the Destiny conversation somewhere else, or down another path, rather, with all of the issues, I say issues, but it's a broadened term with everything Destiny related. Is BioWare just fucked with Anthem? Like, can they release a game that's good that people like? Because it seems impossible to please that crowd in one way or the another, unless it's very specific in what it's doing.
The thing that sucks for Anthem is at this point, it has to be better than good.
Right. It's got to be perfect out of the gate.
Yeah, almost. It has to be like, there's so many expectations at this point, because everyone pretty much knows this is their last hurrah. Like, if Anthem screws up, we know how EA relatively functions. We know what the path is. We've seen it many times before. And if Anthem is a flop, most likely BioWare will be shut down. And the worst part is, Anthem, if you look at their development history, like, is not even one of their strengths. It barely even, like, some of their strengths. Like, maybe a few, but they're all going to be generalized and diluted because of the game that Anthem is by definition, like a casual cooperative multiplayer shooter. So it's the kind of thing where, like, I hate to say this, but I feel like for a significant significant portion of people who play Anthem, it's going to be DOA.
Yeah.
Like, it's not going to matter how good it is. It's kind of like with Bard's Tale 4 and Pathfinder and the people that kickstart it and then play it. People are going to go in with expectations that the game can't possibly provide on.
Totally.
And it's EA's fault for putting them in that position, for telling them, like, you need to make this type of game, which from what we pretty much heard is what happened. But of course, that's not official. But man, like, I don't think I'm going to like Anthem. I hope to God I like Anthem.
Yeah.
I love BioWare. They've been such a big part of game dev over the last couple decades. I would hate to see them go out this way. But oh man, it's almost to the point where, it's very rare that I feel about this game, or about any game. I'm worried. I'm legit concerned about Anthem. Like, even if I don't end up playing it, I'm worried. So,
right.
Yeah.
I really hope
they knock
it out of the park somehow. I don't know how they're going to do it, but I hope they knock it out of the park.
Here's how, 100-hour work weeks. They're going to be crunching right now because that game comes out in 3 fucking months, and they're trying to get everything in. That comes out at the end of February or January, right?
Didn't they say there was going to be some kind of like beta or something? Did that?
They might. I do remember that. Let me look. Anthem beta.
Didn't they?
The thing that really worries me about Anthem is
it's in February. Sorry.
Yeah. Isn't that like the day of all video games, February 22nd?
It is.
200 games come out that day.
Yeah. It is.
Even better for Anthem.
Yeah, they'll be fine. They're only launching as like everything at once. Yeah. But my big worry for Anthem is the movement model, the way you move around the world. I don't think we've solved that design issue. Like, moving through a game is interesting because there's things in your way, right? You have to move around things. There's obstacles, there's buildings, there's trees. That's what makes movement fun. Flying is not fun. Flying in a game, just by definition, is never fun. It's not, because there's nothing. There's nothing. The only way you make flying interesting is if you make like a combat flight simulator, or you're simulating an actual flight. That's fun, but movement through empty space is by definition not interesting.
Unless there's something to like do in that space, yeah.
No, listen, people are like up in arms about this in chat, and this is the difference. It's like flying in empty space is akin to fucking swimming, you know? It's without obstacles and stuff. It's like, I mean, sure, it's like fun to do like stunts and like, you know, if there's shit in your way, right? But I always get bored flying in empty space, actual space. I get bored swimming in games. I fucking hate it.
I have to say, I will respectfully disagree. I actually think the flying could be a big deal. I actually like being able to go above environments and look down on them and kind of like just travel in that medium. Also, I think it's the same as in Spider-Man. I mean, I loved just slinging around the city. I mean, frequently there would be times in Spider-Man when I was just like, hey, my quest is over there, but I'm going to take the long way because those things are close to each other, and I kind of want to like zoom between them.
That's because you had something to do while you were swinging. It's not just an open space.
You can fly to the ground, and there's big obstacles. You can fly around in the air, and like I see, if it was just flying through empty space, I could see it, but I'm pretty sure they're tying the flying into like a movement mechanic, in which case you can like fly around the levels and stuff.
And I agree, that would be interesting. We'll see.
Yeah, that's
the devil's advocate there, but yeah.
We'll just have to see what they do with it, right?
To get that right, it's incredibly hard. Like nobody has done it in a way that makes me think, yes, this will be a great movement mechanic for a game that I will be playing for potentially hundreds of hours, right? Because either the walking is going to be the less interesting mode of transport, or flying is going to be the less interesting mode of transport. But either way, it means that one of the modes of transport we have is not fun. I don't know. Like I'm excited. I'm excited to see how they do it, because again, like I'm a huge fan of BioWare as well, for like the historical reasons. Movement was never their strength. So to see them make a game based around movement, I genuinely hope the best, because there's a lot of good people at BioWare. So let's, I'm getting the game either way. Like I will play Anthem, but I hope I will love Anthem.
We talked about the big 4 games coming out. It's interesting to me because only one of those games I'm like interested in. It's Anthem, Crackdown 3, Days Gone, and then Metro Exodus. The only game that's like not proven to... the only game that looks like it's not being put out to pasture on February 22nd there is Metro Exodus. Like, most of those games, I feel like a lot of people just lost interest in over time, besides Metro Exodus. So
that's like a no-brainer Metro Exodus for me, man.
Yeah,
that's
like
so far away.
And you're a big Metro fan. I'm not, and I still think it's a no-brainer Metro Exodus. Like, it's
That game's looking good. Oh my god, everything we see from that game looks better and better.
Yeah, that's weird. It's a weird thing.
I don't know what's for the rest of this year. We've got Red Dead.
There's Red Dead.
We've got Red Dead Redemption. We've got Call of Cthulhu on the 30th. High hopes for that one. It's looking pretty cool. Very super immersive. That one's looking good. Yeah. Thronebreaker on the 23rd. That should be interesting. I'm going to dive into that one. I skipped Gwent completely. Dive into that one. November 30th, we have a game I'm very hyped for. Talked about it last week. X4 Foundations.
Yep.
Hoping to God it's not a buggy mess. And then
Darksiders 3 comes out in November. Battlefield 5 comes out.
I'm excited for Battlefield.
I'm excited for BR in Battlefield, but not necessarily.
I'm the opposite.
Yeah.
I'm excited for. I mean, I'll play it, but I'm excited for the campaign. I just Battlefield. Call of Duty 4, Blobs 4 releasing without campaign. I was just so sad because, my God, do I love like
the dumb shit,
over the top, spectacular, like ridiculous campaign modes.
Yeah.
And Battlefield 1, I really like the way they did their campaign. just like the little vignettes with the different stories and the different tones. Like, I look forward to that.
Yeah.
I look forward to a big, sure, call it a big.
It's a big dumb action game, is what I.
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's go. Like, I'm so ready for that.
Yeah. Makes sense.
There's also that new what is it? The weird under Fallout 72 or something. Fallout 76.
Yeah.
I think that comes out sometime at the end of this year.
Yeah. And
Is that the Mad Max game?
What?
It's like Mad Max, right?
Oh yeah.
It's sort of like Mad Max and Doom, but like with a little Gran Turismo.
Yeah.
Okay.
Don't you like nuke each other in that game?
You can. Yeah. And then they create raid zones where the nuke lands.
Isn't that weird? Isn't that like the opposite of the point of Fallout?
I don't.
Dude, you know, it's really funny because I'm
Isn't Fallout 76 the opposite of Fallout?
Yeah. Well, the thing is that the important thing to remember is Fallout 76 is a stepping stone to Fallout 5, which I've already confirmed is still coming. So they are going back to like Fallout actually is. But the thing is like I'm going to be playing Fallout 76 exactly like I would Fallout 5. I'm almost curious at this point if it'll work. So like as little other player interaction as I can. I just want to explore the world. I want to find all the cool stuff. Apparently, Todd Howard in an interview said that Fallout 76 somehow has the most recorded dialogue of any Fallout game. So apparently there's a lot of lore in there somewhere. Maybe it's like audio diaries and robot interaction. I don't know. So they're doing a bunch of stuff with it, but
you got to record the 10,000 people screaming in agony as you nuke them. That's a lot of work dialogue.
God damn it. Yeah.
I just hope the only thing I care about, I hope the world is cool. I hope there's some fun lore in there. Like if I hope there's interesting locations to explore. If they keep up the quality of the world design, I think for Fallout fans like me, it'll still be a fun experience. Just doing that, just exploring around, just spending some time in the Fallout world is fun. But I honestly think that most of the stuff that they're selling Fallout 76 on, that the core is just not interested. That's never why we've played Fallout. You know, it's not what draws people to Fallout. So it's very strange that they're trying to like shoehorn the IP into this other demographic.
Totally.
We'll see.
Here is someone who I guess watches kind of we all do watch kind of the trends on Twitch. I think it speaks volumes the fact that someone was playing Fallout 4 yesterday and had like 10,000 plus viewers watching Fallout 4. I think that kind of sets the hype for what Fallout 76 is going to be in its first week. And if they crash and burn, the internet is going to fucking get their pitchforks and riot like a motherfucker. So
I think they've been low-key rioting since the gameplay stuff came out.
Well, yeah, I think the riots are happening right now. But the second that goes live and people get their hands on it, Bethesda's going to be in a
you have spot. The Xbox only demo.
Right.
I don't know what the hell they were thinking. Talk about not putting your best foot forward. Let's show the first gameplay of our game for a week, not on PC. I'm sure people will just love that. That's going to do wonders for our product's PR. So that's going to be from the 23rd to the 30th, and then the PC version comes out. So, yeah. Oh man.
On the other hand, like, I mean, think about it. Like, they probably got a good bag of money from Microsoft for that, and then a week after that beta ends and the PC version comes out, people are going to do like 100 articles that are like, "Look how much better Fallout 76 looks on PC." Right. So maybe that works out.
Yeah.
It'll just be like riots for a week and a half, which
yeah.
I guess we're used to. You know that's like a genuine like developer advice thing. It's like if you're doing 2 SKUs, if you're doing 2 platforms at the same time. You're doing mobile and PC, always release on mobile first.
Because the fires get put out after the
sorry, always other way around. Always launch on PC first.
Yeah, that makes
launch
more
on
sense.
PC first, because after you do it on PC and then put it on mobile, people are going to go like, "Wow, this game works the same way on mobile as on PC. That's incredible work."
Yeah.
Well, if you do it the other way around, people are going to go like, "Oh, that's a shitty mobile port on PC," so they'll hate it. And you're literally developing them at the same time.
What was that?
Where it's like, I was thinking more of it was like a Monster Hunter World situation where it's like release it on the not as powerful one first, but put enough time in there so that everyone's going to buy it and play it on that, and then release it on PC a few months later, and that's the better version. And then everyone has to buy it again if they want to check out
that's double dipping. I mean that's GTA.
That's the direction that Rami was going with it.
Yeah. The other thing that I thought was interesting that I didn't realize was a thing until someone brought it up. Apparently, Call of Duty's going to have microtransactions in it like a month after it releases. And the reason they don't include them at the launch of the game is because they don't want them in the initial reviews.
Wait, what is this? Which one?
Call of Duty's going to have some sort of like microtransactions in the game to where you can like buy skins and stuff like that. But it's not in the original game because they don't want them in the reviews.
No way.
Like, how fucked up is that?
That is genius.
It is. It's fucked up genius. Yeah.
Genius.
Yeah.
Because unless every single company goes and updates the review a month later, then anyone looking for reviews will get a positive review that doesn't mention Nitro.
Yep. They won't even be in the review to begin with.
Microtransactions? Oh my god.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's incredible.
Wow.
So I'm curious when that stuff starts coming out. They've done it in past games. They did it with the World War II game, whatever that was.
You
for Call of
almost
Duty.
can't be upset at how evil that is.
No, you can't.
Dude, I know. And think
It's
about
like,
it.
it's
You
like
can
almost
go-
impressive.
And they wouldn't have a transaction. So you'd look at the product and be like, oh, I'll buy this because there's no microtransactions. Awesome. Because I'm watching, and it's just like, it's wow. Frustratingly brilliant.
Yeah. And well, I'm not exactly sure if those are just skins or what those actual microtransactions are, because I don't think they've actually talked about any of that. So we'll have to see when that stuff actually comes out.
We'll figure it out.
Oh
And
my-
otherwise, somewhere there'll be a Jake sitting there and just be like, "Hey, see what Call of Duty did? Like, let's cut it. Let's not do that."
Yeah, it'll either work or it won't. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
What were you gonna say, Co?
Imagine if they put some kind of like meaningful, as in impacting gameplay microtransaction into their BR module.
Yeah, I'm trying to think, like, if they touch anything that actually impacts the player's performance in game, people will fucking riot. Yeah. I don't know what they could even do there unless it's like you start with a gun. They would never do that, but they could.
Chad is pretty adamant they wouldn't do that. I
Yeah.
would hope that they wouldn't. But then again, you would think they wouldn't do the month later thing either.
Right.
So like that, I don't know, dude.
Yeah.
I don't know. We live
Yeah.
in a different.
Yeah. It'll
It's
probably go fairly
also-
unnoticed too. Like, they'll just be like,
Yeah,
oh,
it
probably
that's
will.
out. That's out.
I mean, it makes sense that they would, especially for the blackout mode. It just kind of makes sense that you would follow the model that Fortnite has in some ways. But
Right, and that's the
Gosh.
other thing. Fortnite puts out skins every fucking week almost for their game, and like it's not the biggest deal. But Call of Duty waiting a month after it's released to put out skins is like that's a big deal.
I think maybe what they're trying to do is they're trying to release it now as a Call of Duty game, and then like basically pull a Fortnite and they just reposition it as a battle royale game first and foremost later.
Yeah.
That
Chat's
sounds
pointing out that
sounds like
Fortnite's
a
free to
pretty
play though. I mean,
good- Yeah, well, that's the thing.
yeah.
They can't,
shouldn't
so
give
they
them a
can't-
pass.
Wait a
They
minute.
can't launch it as battle royale now.
Yeah.
They're
I can
launching it
play
as
Fortnite
Call
for
of
free?
Duty.
Yeah. 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 It's a weird.
No, but that's the thing. Maybe that's what they're trying to do. Maybe what they're trying to do is they're trying to say like, hey, buy this $60 game because there's a whole bunch of stuff here, and then in like a month when they got all those sales, it's gonna go like, no, it's a battle royale game. I mean, that's when the sales are gonna start happening as well, right? Like there's gonna be sales in a few months.
Yeah.
Price is gonna drop.
Call of
Battle Royale's
Duty's
gonna,
rarely
like-
go on sale though, right? Like they'll mark them off like 10 or 15
For the-
bucks once a year, but
For the battle royale stuff, I think you'll see it drop much faster.
here's the real question, and I think vehemently they will not do this, but do you think Call of Duty will sell Blackout by itself as a standalone game?
They might even make it free. Like it's hard to say, but the microtransactions will probably take a major role in that. So yeah, that's probably a thing.
Yeah. We'll see. I don't know. Black Ops is definitely
You'll
that thing.
You'll get $20 in microtransaction currency if you bought it.
If you already bought it.
originally.
Yeah,
Yeah.
fuck. I could see them totally doing that. Yeah, that'd be a weird thing. The last thing I'll bring up, only because we've talked about this mode being created before, but they actually went and did it. Did you guys see the ghost mode that they're doing for Hitman 2? Where it's you basically play against another person doing the same mission, and you're given 5 random targets to kill, and you're basically trying to fight the ghost, the other player. And it's just like it's competitive-ish Hitman, which just seems great.
Wait, so is the other player actually in your world, or
That I
are
don't
they
know. I think it's more like Mario Kart or Forza, the Drivatar or Ghost systems or whatever. So I don't think.
So like, you could pick a friend who's completed a run to be the ghost in your game, and then you'd see his like pre-recorded stuff happen.
Yeah,
kind of thing?
I think so. Which is
Like
cool.
Trials.
Yeah.
Cool.
Or Trials. Yeah, exactly.
Interesting.
Yeah. They put a video.
Interesting.
Let's see.
Oh, it is live. People are saying that it's live.
Oh.
It happens at the same time.
Okay, well that's different then.
Oh, cool. Wow.
That's
Because you
even more
see the other
exciting.
person, but you can't interact with them, I guess.
Huh.
I wonder how many people are just going to follow the other guy to troll him.
Well,
How can they though? They can't affect their world.
you can't affect their world.
No, I mean just
Oh, just to
follow
troll
them
them in general.
like doing
So you could throw coins.
right
You
behind
could
him.
throw coins probably to
That would be cool.
attract guards.
Here's the
Oh,
trailer
you
for
can
it.
interact through a ghost coin. Okay.
That's good.
Yeah, this thing, like, for me, this has always been the thing that I would want in a Hitman game, and now it's actually here. The fact that it is
So
real is cool.
it kind of looked like you were going versus Dr. Manhattan for a second.
a little bit, yeah. I think this game's gonna be pretty fucking cool. This also comes out in November, I think. Hitman 2 launches in November, so
That just went straight on my list of stuff I want to play.
yeah. I mean,
That's super.
it's been one of our things on the show, like, oh yeah, we need to play Hitman together when those elusive targets come out. We haven't done it for like 2 years, so maybe this one will come out.
Now, is it limited to 2 players?
Yes, I think in this it only shows 2.
If it was 3, we could have some fun with that.
Yeah. We could still both start on like a level and just see what happens. Yeah.
We
Create
also
our
do on and do 2 and 2, and then we all watch the winners go at it too.
Right. Yeah.
But this is so like think about it. So much of this is so good because there's so many times in Hitman where you can't do the thing you want to do because it would give you away. And seeing the other player's ghost like sneak up on the target while you have to blend in with a crowd without standing out, and you're like quietly shuffling forward and just hoping the guard will turn to like. There's so many good moments here already. Just like thinking for like a second.
Oh yeah. Because if they somehow get the kill with a sniper shot far away and you're up close, I guess just take out your pistol, shoot the guy, and start running. You got 15 seconds to kill him.
Super good.
Yeah, I saw that. I was
They
super
showed
excited for
the
it.
trailer. One guy was sneaking up on him, and then the other dude came up behind him and threw a knife, and it went through the ghost and hit the guy.
Yep.
Like that's gonna be it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be
It'll
fun.
be cool.
Apparently, Sean Bean is gonna be one of the targets.
Yeah,
which is hilarious.
so they revealed 6 hours ago, that trailer came out, that Sean Bean is the first elusive target. And there's a trailer about him talking about all the ways that he's faked his death in different media. So they even filmed a pretty cool trailer with that stuff. So that'll be cool. When does that actually launch? It's November something or other.
13th. It looks like.
Is that that's Hitman 2, like the full
Yeah.
thing?
Yeah, I
You're
don't
not
think
doing
it's.
it-
I don't
Alright.
believe it's episodic. I think it's a full game.
So November's gonna have Fallout 76, Hitman 2, Darksiders 3, X4,
Battlefield.
Battlefield 5. Wow.
There is one that I'm really looking forward to.
What's that?
That kind of is going under the radar. The Quiet Man, which you play a deaf character, I believe.
I remember that. Yeah, from E3, they showed that, and I was just like, "What the fuck is What is this game?" Yeah.
Yeah, it looks intriguing for sure. Like the mechanics of it look really cool.
Yeah.
There's a movie called The Quiet Man.
That's.
With John Wayne.
Oh, right. I was thinking that for some reason there was a tie-in, but there's not.
I don't think there is.
There's not.
The first article that comes up, the Quiet Man won't be so quiet after an update is released.
Right. Apparently,
Free
on the
update
second
for the
playthrough,
Quiet
they're
Man.
going to add audio into it or something like that.
Yeah.
Oh.
Huh.
Yeah, I saw that
Interesting.
like yesterday or something.
Yeah, I
mean,
googled
the
The
kids
Quiet
will be
Man trailer and got very confused.
Yeah. Any of you guys gonna play Soul Calibur this week? I was a huge Soul Calibur fan when I was in my teens, but its fighting games are fucking brutal. I don't want to stream a fighting game. That just sounds like a bad time.
The only fighting games I'm playing right now, I mean, I play Mario Tennis, which is the best fighting game ever made. And Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball Fighters, Dragon Ball Fighter Z, like whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
That I used to be a Dead or Alive fan actually because I like the counter system. But every time you say you like Dead or Alive, people immediately jump to you liked it because of the clothes.
Yeah, you're just a pervert as well. So.
But actually, just like I'm a game developer, so hey, I fucking like the game design of that game.
Yeah.
Not the character design. But yeah, I'm excited for a Soul Calibur game. It's been a while. I'll probably jump in and then just drop out again. Like Dragon Ball Fighters is still the fighting game I like playing right now. So
yeah, we'll see. I'm trying to see if there's anything else. Not really. I don't think there's anything big. So I guess we'll just do some shout outs and get out of here because we successfully talked for 3 hours about nothing. Just about absolutely nothing, which is great. Rami, thanks for being on the show again. Always a pleasure to have you.
Thanks for having me.
Have a good flight to Australia. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah. I'll tell my pilot. He's the important
one. Yeah, are you going to be watching movies or playing games or a little bit of both? Or
I have some games I need to play. I actually have my PlayStation and my Switch with me, and I have my laptop, obviously. So I'm excited to catch up on some games. But I think if there's good movies, I want to see. But I guess it's not there yet. But Bad Times at the El Royale is a movie I really want to go see. So if that's on there, maybe I'll watch that.
That might have came out Tuesday. I think I saw that at Best Buy the other day.
So it's probably not on in airplanes yet, but we'll see. There's always something to watch on a movie. It's just a 15-hour flight, so it's a 15-hour flight.
Yeah, I don't know why you do that to yourself. Do some shout-outs instead of talking about that 15-hour flight. Where can people check you out, Rami?
Well, if people want to check me out, I'm available on Twitter, @THA_Rami. That's also my Twitch. I mostly live stream game development streams. So if you want to see me play games, that's not happening. But if you want to hear me talk about making games, that happens a lot. If you have any questions about game development or any questions about anything games related, just hit me up on Twitter. Check out my games at Vlamir.com, and our latest release was Nuclear Throne, which is a game about mutants in a post-apocalyptic wasteland where you shoot things. We've also made a game about collecting crates where you shoot things called Super Crate Box. We've made a game about fishing with machine guns where you shoot things called Ridiculous Fishing. I always make shooting things. I can't help it.
Yeah, it's going to be a part of your new MMO racing game that you're...
there'll be lots of shooting.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, 2 hours of it, not lots of it. Remember?
Fair.
You're limited. Yeah, you're limited in time. Zeke, do some shout-outs for us.
All right. What's up, everybody? Ezekiel the Third here. Thank you to Rami for being one of the best guests we ever have. Insightful, philosophic, and not that hard on the eyes, I'll say.
Kind of like that beanie, huh?
Yeah. If you enjoy my Black Ops 3 beanie, which is not a Black Ops 3 beanie, but a brand, my brand, the 3 bars is mine.
Yeah, you fucked yourself with that.
You can get it on my human store. I'm just thank you to JP, all that stuff. I will be playing Bard's Tale. Give me 15, 20 minutes to get a drink, go to the bathroom and stuff before we start. But right after that, I will be playing that. And that's what I got coming up. So that's it. That's all I got.
Cool. Some shout outs, sir.
Sure. First of all, as always, big thanks to Zeke and JP. Awesome fun today. And of course, Rami, always great to have you on. My name is Ko. You can find me streaming every single day at 8 a.m. EDT over at my channel. Right now, we're playing more Pathfinder and Bard's Tale 4. This weekend, we're going to be checking out the new Warframe story quest, as well as probably the RimWorld 1.0 release. And then, of course, next Tuesday, we've got Thronebreaker. And then it just gets crazy as TwitchCon comes up and all sorts of things. So anyway, as always, thank you guys for watching. Directly after the show, I'm going to be playing Neverwinter Nights 2 and drinking some more beer. So if you have not seen that for a while, maybe a good time to come by and check it out, see if it's what you remember. And on that note, we won't see you guys next Wednesday, but we will see you next Saturday, JP?
I believe it's Saturday. There's a Drop Frames panel at TwitchCon is what Ko's trying to allude to. I just don't know the day that it's happening.
I think it's like Saturday at 11, but that could be wrong.
Yeah, I'll tell you.
That would be PDT, so, oh God, time zones. Anyway, stay tuned to Drop Frames Twitter for more information on our next show.
Saturday 11 Pacific, which is the normal time that we start. No, an hour after we usually start, but on Saturday. We'll tweet it out. I'm sure all three of us will tweet it when we're going live, and you can find it on the on the TwitchCon panel or the TwitchCon page. You're not going to TwitchCon, are you, Rami? Are you going to be there?
I was gonna, but then Australia called and they wanted me there, so I guess I have to skip. That's a little bit too much flying for me.
Yeah, I mean, you could go SF to Australia, then Australia to SF if you're really feeling into it, but I don't recommend.
What a great idea that I'm absolutely not doing.
Good. Don't listen to my advice. It's always bad. It will be on my YouTube. I'll try to get the VOD from Twitch and we'll get that uploaded. Anyways, we're going to get out of here. We'll see you guys at TwitchCon. We're out. Bye-bye.